fancy meeting you here, but it's so nice that you came. So, today it's Awkward Sibling Hour Day. And guess who's with me? The incomparable, the always my best friend, Tom!
Hello. I'm back.
Yay! Well, hello, Tom. It's lovely to see you again.
It's always nice to see you.
It's been like, what, a solid hour and a quarter since I last saw you in person.
Was it really that long ago?
It really
It seems like barely half an hour.
Jokes. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our hellos. I just want to point out, though, I have a request from now till eternity that if anyone who's here, would you come in if you're up for it? I would absolutely love to hear about the weather where you are, because I am an absolute weather geek, and how any pets or animals you have are doing. I would love pet and animal updates because, yeah. So, and today, let's see, I think today's high where we are is the high is supposed to be 57, and it's a bit windy. It's not terribly windy. Yesterday was really windy. But Dom, do you have anything to add to the weather? No,
it's chilly and cold. It's nice.
It's as cold as we're going to get for, like, I think the blizzard that's encased the Midwest and heading toward the east, and all we get is a high of 57. Anyone?
Well, no, sorry, high of 50 because it's 47 right now.
Oh, I guess the temperature's dropping. Okay. So we've been having fun in the chat for a while. Eva stopped by, and Tom's here doing double duty. And Megan is here. Hello, Megan. And Heather has shown up. Hello, darling. It is lovely to see you too. And and CB is here. It's supposed to snow here this week, so I am going nowhere till it's gone if it does. Exam has been paid for. Excellent. Oh, and let's see. Oh, and Megan says it's sunny here. Princess and Nessie are quietly sleeping. They're doing an aw. Mm-hmm. I love the pet updates. We have some outside feral cats that have adopted us. And, they're just up to their usual stalking bugs, I assume. I don't know.
Complaining at each other.
They do that, don't they? Yeah. So,
yeah, they're not even really upset or scared of each other. They're just complaining.
Yes. They are loud cats. They're both tuxedo cats. They're both just black and white. And we've named them Eleanor and Brittany. One of them's male. That's Brittany. And Eleanor's female. They definitely live up to their names. Just gonna say that. So, Tom.
Yes, Glory.
It is Awkward Sibling Hour Day.
Yeah, I plan to be very awkward today.
I'm feeling especially awkward, if I'm brutally honest.
I mean, we're going to be talking about representation and talking about token characters and stuff we don't like, and occasionally we do like.
As well as
awkwardness.
Like, you got me hooked on Doom Patrol in the past week.
Yeah, after how many months? Almost a year at least of just like,
I was like, oh no, it's been almost a year of me going, no. And you finally got me to watch it, and I was like hooked hard. And I binged this thing so hard since both seasons. And I, have all sorts of thoughts and feels about these characters. These true misfit characters. It's very soap opera-y, but not like in the all my children as the hourglass empties kind of way, but in a just nobody's functional. And so there's just always drama. It's like eternal high school. So, yeah.
but it's still more positive than VC Andrews.
Oh, well, most things are more positive than VC Andrews, if we're brutally honest here. Whew, that was a wild time when so I got into VC Andrews when I went to boarding school at 13 years old, and the entire dorm I was in of, gosh, I don't remember. I think it was like approximately 60 females total. I don't know. You know what? I'd have to actually do the math, but it was a bunch. Maybe it was 80. I don't remember now. I could actually do the math though
Who cares? Go on.
Okay. Anyway, so Flowers in the Attic. There were several of the older students who were really like, "Oh my God, can you believe this story?" Anyway, I don't actually remember, or maybe I wasn't privy to how this train started. But within like 2 weeks of the first person reading or starting to read Flowers in the Attic, the book became such in high demand in our dorm that eventually they tore the book apart, and you just got it in pages, and you were on the list. You'd get on the list, so you'd know who is the one person ahead of you and who is the person behind you. And as soon as you finished reading your page, you would hand it off. And our entire dorm read Flowers in the Attic that way. Oh, the conversations, the controversy. I will never look at donuts the same way again in my life. And it really turned me off of glazed donuts, like forever. Let alone powdered donuts. Like, let me tell you, I have not touched powdered donuts in, 25 years. Nope, hard pass. So, yeah. And then when I came home from boarding school for Christmas break that year, it was like, you have to read this, Tom. And because our local public library had it. And he's like, I don't want it. I'm like, no, you have to read it and tell me what you think. So I forced young Tom, who was like 10,
to
read it. Oh, inappropriate. We had things to talk about for frickin' years. And yeah. And I think that's kind of the fun of very controversial stories filled with misfit characters, and where characters, for whatever the reasons, are allowed to be themselves without much pressure to truly conform to society's expectations. Since, these children were kept in an attic for literally years, they truly did develop their own quirks and characteristics that, even in the book they discuss, probably would not have happened had they been going to school regular. So, yeah, that was my introduction to essentially a group read at a religious boarding school. So many adults had mixed feelings about our dorm reading this. But as the school was anti-censorship, God, truly, teenagers will test all the adult boundaries. So anyway, total tangent. Back to what we're talking about, media representation. And yeah.
I would say, like, part of this was, one, to get our complaints out of our system so we can all just talk about that awful movie.
Yeah, because that was Tom's pitch for doing media representation episode now, is let's go ahead and get all of our complaints about the Sia movie out of our system, because it's never going to get better. Every update about this movie just makes it worse. Every single update. And so it's like, let's just go ahead so that way we don't have to keep, gnashing our teeth about it. Like, as far as the two of us, of like, how are we going to talk about this on the show? Because we're going to have to eventually talk about it because it's so important and it's so terrible. And it was like, let's just, instead of toe dipping, let's just jump into the deep end of, and let me just go ahead and say, yeah, there's going to be cursing because I already feel it bubbling up.
Now, on the other side, coincidentally, Doom Patrol is actually a very good way to talk about positive forms of representation.
And diversity of characters. And I don't mean
Yeah.
just like racially or culturally or any, I don't mean that. I mean that in every way that characters can be different from, the publishing industry standard or even Hollywood standard of, your cis het white male, which for some reason is seen as, anyway, you know what? I'm already feeling it. Anyway, of like that shouldn't be the standard, but nevertheless it's being treated as such. So we're going to talk about it as such, of when you deviate from that, which I would like to highly recommend everyone deviate from it. Also, but don't feel guilty if you do feel like it's appropriate to have a cishet white male character. I mean, like, that's okay. They do exist. They're real. So I've been told. Anyway. It's okay to have them. It's just not okay to like see them as the standard. And so anytime we, branch out with other characters, it's like, oh, so controversial, yet so brave. No. So, that was what we wanted to talk about. Yes, we want to get off our chest all our, feels about the Sia movie. I feel the weight pushing.
And maybe go back to some of the previous ones that have also been equally just.
I try to block them out of my memory, to be perfectly honest.
I do, but I mean, some of them are just too famous, like Rain Man.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay, fair. Because again, I just try to block that out. I do not think about it in my active idea of like autism characters. Because it is such a narrow representation. But on the other hand, I will say that at least it got people talking, which is better than an absolute, blackout situation of autism. What's that? And I'm like, are you kidding? Because like now the CDC estimates that 1 out of every 54 people in America is autistic, whether they've been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder or not. And so that is quite a bit of people. That is a notable minority. So, I guess it's something. It's just that it was like then after Rain Man, it was a blackout of, no autistic characters or at least I don't think there was much in the way of autistic representation.
Not a lot. I mean, the next one I can immediately think of is Cuba Gooding Jr. in Radio.
Okay.
How
many decades it's been since I watched that movie?
When it came out in the early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, I'm like, we had it at the video store, so I know I watched it once and was like, I know I felt cringy at the time. That's pretty much the only memory I have of like, I feel, So anyhow, yes. Tom now we figured out how to get Tom control so he can click on the comments so that, because I get highly distracted. So like, yeah, Tom can do that too. Isn't it great? Yes. The corporate takeover, the Tom Corporation. So what was CB's comment? Put it up so I can actually read it this time. There is an argument about whether or not Tony Stark is on or was on the spectrum. Fair. Okay, let's go over that. Like while we're here, let's mention that. So when it comes to disorders and autism, where the disorder shows up is primarily as a communication disorder. And essentially they struggle to communicate, or we struggle. Let's say let's just go ahead and say we, because I don't want to be othering about this, but essentially, and it's not just, oh, hey, sweetie. It's not just with neurotypicals that autistics, if their communication's disordered, are struggling to communicate. It's with everyone. So as I've mentioned before, like how I really felt off and on for like my entire childhood, and where many of my meltdowns would start, had to do with this feeling that Harlan Ellison, I feel like, really added very well put with the title, I have no mouth and I must scream. of this, like I can't even get the words out to communicate my frustration or my concern or whatever the thing I need to communicate because of like danger, or no, wrong boundary has been crossed, whatever it is. I suddenly the words aren't coming. It's like that part of my brain is suddenly like has gone out to lunch and is unavailable and we'll be back in a half hour. It feels like that. And I'm just absolutely like up in arms about help. I'm stuck inside my head. And that's also where like the selective mutism can show up, as well as this, intense need and desire to communicate. And suddenly the words aren't there. Like nothing's coming out except maybe if you're lucky, yelling or screaming, but like nothing coherent. I'll put it that way. Nothing coherent is coming out. And so that's where that autism actually becomes a communication disorder. So I've said all that to explain with post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociative disorders, you can see a very similar symptom where suddenly they're not able to communicate, but it's for different reasons. So essentially the cause is somewhat different, because with PTSD and dissociative disorders, the reason why they're having a communication problem has to do with their brain being overwhelmed with trauma or the trauma flashback. And so their brain is overwhelmed with that sensory, versus with autism, the causation can be different. But I do want to point out, autistics are also more prone to PTSD and dissociative disorders. So it's all super complicated. Okay, anyway, I know you've been putting stuff up. Let's see. Okay, what is Heather's? I have to watch this later. Which one are we talking about?
She has to go. She had to go.
No, this. Oh, she meant this episode. I was like, oh, which show?
Yeah, no, Charlie has to go. I mean, Heather has to go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Heather her son has something.
Yeah, she has to go pick him up.
So, okay. And then Charlie says, I like James O'Barr's phrase, concave scream, because the screen bends back at you, or the scream maybe bends back at you. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of my meltdowns as a child, and quite frankly, a few of mine in my early to mid 20s in particular, were definitely, I have no mouth and I must scream. I mean, like I literally, even into like at 22, I was still running into closets and closing the door, even when they were other people's coat closets, to just, let my brain have a minute to try to figure out how to explain how this has been a boundary crossing and I'm very uncomfortable and frankly feel attacked, of like, because I wasn't necessarily hanging out with best quality people at the time. And so this came up more often. Thankfully for me, it seems like the thing that my parents actually had told me, particularly Dad had told me of, it's just going to take a few more decades for your brain to catch up, to grow old enough to be able to handle that, and you will not experience that as often. This, I have no mouth and I must scream. And he was absolutely right. So again, I want to point out, I'm not necessarily saying this for all autistics, because if you met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. But because our family, this is definitely runs in the family kind of thing. So I had parents who could pretty much kind of tell me like how it would go decade by decade with this thing that I found so horrible and isolating and scary, is suddenly I need to communicate and nothing's coming out and I feel endangered. So let's see. Okay. What did you pop up about the cookie?
Oh, that was just Eva's, she's here as long as, the kid has a chocolate chip cookie. We'll see how long she's got.
Nice.
As long as the child allows.
Eva, I really wish you could have joined us earlier backstage just to talk about that article you posted. I think that's very interesting, and I do already have thoughts. Let's see. The first thing I learn in every place I go is where all the dark corners are, so I know where the places are I can hide in to get away from the chaos. Yes.
I am an expert at a regular residential house. Where is the outside places I can go that no one's going to look for me or see? There's usually at least one corner of the house that is fairly protected and no one will look.
Yeah.
And that's just a standard, behavior for me now.
Hey, sweetie, how are you doing, Stephanie?
I'll get her a
Oh
link.
yeah. Oh well, I thought she was in the Instagram group. So if you don't have a link, sweetie, let us know.
Yeah, go check Instagram.
But yeah, like we posted a link in Charlie's Instagram group and our awkward sibling group. And if anyone else who doesn't have access to that would like to join us, let us know. Because like one of the things why I like to join people on their live streams is because, again, communication order, it's a little, sometimes it can be difficult for me to figure out typing the words, what I want to say in chat. It's easier if I can actually be on screen and therefore can just talk. It's a little less exhausting for me when I can do that. So
I was gonna say, like, I keep talking with Glory the last 2 weeks of I would really prefer if I can to talk video conference style with Maggie about her stories and stuff, because I'm so used to being misunderstood that the thought of writing out everything I'm thinking plus all the little secondary and tertiary thoughts so I'm not misunderstood is daunting, because I'm used to, I don't think in a neurotypical way, so I'm used to my phrasing being very misunderstood among the vast majority of people. So it's can we talk? Because I don't want to have to type up everything. It's a lot of paragraphs.
Yeah, I put up Stephanie's comment about her daughter likes corners and under the bed. Yeah. I'm definitely somebody who's known for taking breathers in public bathroom stalls. Particularly if there's enough stalls where, there's not a line or anything. Oh, well, then I'm going to find a stall and just sit quietly and listen to my own breath. Because that's the nice thing about stalls is the walls are so close that there's a very faint echo. And I find that very calming for me. CB says I carry my MP3 player with headphones at all times at family functions because I'm the only one who doesn't drink. And I'm not on the spectrum. Yeah. I mean, like everyone can get overwhelmed for a variety of reasons. And also, I'm just going to say it. Sometimes people suck. Just suck. So, yeah. And Eva says about wanting to bail. You could bail like before we go live, but we just were like, you should come back behind stage and just chat with us. Like real life, like if you have a stage where people will come backstage to chat with you and then they'll go sit up front, in the audience chairs. Yeah, that was like what we were thinking. Because like I know most people are like, I'm not necessarily in the mood to be on show, and I get that, but it's like, yeah, come back and chat with us. That's cool. And then go, well, the show's about to start. I'll see y'all in the chat, and it's like, that's awesome. We totally understand that. I mean, like a big reason we keep doing this is we really want to offer a lot of literal time of the two of us talking both to other people as well as each other, so that there's a lot of data for anyone who wants to write characters who at least may somewhat resemble us, in order to have autistic characters that are more accurate. As well as, as I've said before, I do have a PTSD diagnosis as well as an ADHD diagnosis. So, oh yeah, I'm all over the place.
Hey, Stephanie, just in case, I just sent you a direct link on Discord. If that'll be easier.
So anyway, awkwardness. I say awkwardness aside, and I'm like, no, it's not aside. Who are we joking? So anyway.
Well, here's something else we've had to kind of come to accept, which is if you don't mind the way we talk, like it's okay to you going through this whole show, it means either you're probably somewhere on the spectrum or someone in your immediate family.
Or friends.
Or friend, but it means someone you've had a long-term contact with. And you've, developed a good, decent relationship with them. Because otherwise, mainstream, the way we communicate is very
upsetting to neurotypicals.
Yeah.
They seem genuinely upset and even sometimes offended the way we just literally converse or chat with him. And I mean, like, even when we're on our best behavior and trying our absolute best to not interrupt anybody and to listen thoughtfully and give everyone plenty of time and space to speak their mind, and they still find us irritating.
Yeah, and it's not anything we even know we're doing, but it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. So that's why we wanted to offer this. This essentially, like, all these hours of video that are available free for anyone to stream or to watch at any point is so that they can really get a feel for how we talk, how we converse, how we react. Granted, I mean, that's certainly not showing us in our worst moments where we're reacting to terrible things, which often characters would be experiencing a lot of heavy conflict or conflict-heavy situations. And I get that. But, we try our best. And then we also want to make ourselves available should anybody want to talk more in depth with us about, well, what about this? Would you do this? Let's see. CB says, my mother's cousin-in-law said she thought I was on the spectrum. I explained as best as I could. I mean, there is more to neurodivergency than just autism.
Yeah.
Epilepsy is part of the neurodivergent family, as are a bunch of, neurodivergent diagnoses and just states of being is how I think of it. So it is what it is. So anyhow, where are we? Are we ready to do a 10-minute sprint?
Yeah.
You want to talk further?
Well, I mean, I figure our next thing is to start getting into the deeper, thoughts we were having on, different media and shows.
Like what? Give me a sample.
Like our complaints about representation of autists in, TV shows and movies versus how we see most people. I mean, there's a reason
about like that, those books that have recently come out that the publishers hailed as having autistic main characters, and the writers were slowly backing away from that. I think because they had spoken to several people with autism and were informed these characters are not autistic. They are odd, but just being odd does not make them autistic. Please do not call it autism when it's not. It's really misleading for people. And like that, you mean?
Yeah. And just, all the places it shows up. And then also, bring up the why for the longest time scientists thought children grew out of autism.
Wait. Why did they think children grew out of autism?
Because we learned to mask better.
Oh! Oh, yes. No.
Most people are like, you don't seem autistic.
Oh,
and it's like, because we can mask.
It's like, I realize you think you're giving me a compliment. Okay. But.
Yeah, that's right there with, if you're on Twitter, you might have started following in the last few weeks a comedian in Georgia called Buttercream. And he had a great rant because he's from the county that's represented by what's her name, Green, and, space lasers starting fires.
Marjorie Taylor Greene or something like that.
Yeah, and essentially talking about how he hates hearing the "you're one of the good ones," and just how awful what that phrase really implies and means.
It's
and
really,
the same thing.
Yeah, it's really sad and disheartening to hear, like, you're one of the good ones. Like, oh, this does not speak well.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we about ready to do a 10-minute sprint?
Yeah, let's take just a quick breather.
Maybe I would love a pee break right now because the coffee's kicking in.
I would say, do you need some wine?
No, I actually have some little from yesterday. And yeah, Tom got me the big thing of coffee. There's still a little bit left, which as soon as I come back from my pee break, I'm totally going to finish it. So, but anyhow, TMI aside, we'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Three, two, one, sprint. beep, 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 beep. Hello, hello.
Hello. Hi.
We've caught a wild Stephanie.
How are you guys?
Tom, you're still muted.
We're doing all right.
We can't all read lips, Tom.
Glory can't either.
Oh,
She
okay.
can just hear me in another room.
I can literally hear him down the hall.
Oh.
Also, right before that, I had tried to unmute him, and StreamYard's like, you can't unmute guests if they've muted themselves. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I had a glitch in him as we started, and looks like you've redone your hair lately, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I did it that other time, and then it faded enough that it was looking kind of like orangey, brassy.
I know, so now it's bright.
Yes. Last time I did Applelicious, like an apple red. This time I did a raspberry pink.
Oh, yeah.
It was definitely brighter when I first did it.
Yeah, it has like a bit of a raspberry beret look to it. That's nice. Yes. I like it.
Yeah, I like this color. Although my roots, I bleached them for like 2 hours and they never changed color.
Huh?
Nothing.
Just to geek out for a minute, do you remember what strength of developer you were using?
No.
Like 20 or 30 or
no, 10? It was like it was a box kit I got from a regular store.
Oh, okay.
And it had like a bleaching kit in it that you bleach, and then once it's dry, then you could add the color on top of it once it's dry. It was a brand from Walmart called Splat.
And I still have that too. I have it in purple in their fridge in the bathroom. I still haven't used it.
Okay. So like the red and the pink showed up, like the raspberry pink and the apple red showed up. Even after I bleached it, it showed up well. And I tried doing a blue and like an Easter egg purple, and it had the bleaching kit in it, and it didn't show up on my hair. I don't know why. Don't know why suddenly the bleaching stuff worked.
Well, I'm very glad we've had this conversation because I literally have like 2 or 3 boxes of different colors because I have this fantasy of what I want to do, and like COVID pretty much stopped it because like my next door neighbor was going to do my hair. But I do normally keep by developer separate.
Oh, okay.
Because our hair does tend to actually my hair is a little sensitive to it, so I usually use a lower developer.
Okay.
That's less strong. I don't know. Words. What are those? I don't. I didn't get my full allotment today. But it's good to know that I may need to actually pull out the stronger developers that I normally keep under the sink.
Which is weird because like all of this, like the black that's in there is what didn't take. But like so the first time when I did the apple red one, I just used one box. And like there was a lot more that didn't get bleached, didn't get dyed. Like, all right, so then the second time when I put this color on there, I used 2 boxes. So I did 2 boxes of the bleaching kit on there, and I left it on there for a lot longer than it says because I have such dark hair. I left on there a lot longer, and I even put the bleaching on the roots first, and it never took. So it was like black and like super bright pink, bright pink.
Yeah.
So it was just weird how it just didn't take my roots. Which, I mean, it was okay because I had like streaks of black throughout my hair, so it wasn't solidly all bright pink. Yeah. And even now, it's been like 2 months. When I wash it in hot water, it'll still bleed out a little bit.
Yeah, because I think the Splat was said it was a semi-permanent, not a permanent hair color. So yeah, I was expecting it to come out with every wash a little bit more.
Yeah, the ones I got, I can't remember, but it wasn't like washes out in 6 to 8 weeks, but it was either semi-permanent or permanent hair color.
Yeah. My fantasy is to have blue and purple highlights like a comic book character. Like, remember the old 4-color comic books?
Oh, yes.
From the 80s, where if the character, especially the female character, had dark, brown or black hair, it was practically blue, like Superman blue highlights. And I'm like, yes, this is what I want. So that is eventually one day what I shall do, since I love purple and blue.
I've tried 4 different colors of Splat, like I've tried like this blue color, and I tried this Easter egg purple color, and they didn't show up at all on my hair. Nothing. But like the reds did. The red and pink did. So I don't know. I just feel like I got a color on my hair, and it turned out okay-ish.
Yeah. Experiments in hair coloring. Okay, let's see. CB got 234 words. Tom?
Sorry.
We haven't gotten to applaud the words yet. Yay!
Why don't we read them? They're fun words.
Okay,
We've
now
all been
go
there.
to the other one. I felt just awful. My head felt like I had the cast of Riverdance using it as a stage. Anytime I sat up, I got dizzy and nauseous. Anytime I tried to stand, I fell. Excellent.
I think most people here know that feeling.
You can absolutely relate, yes. And then Maggie joined us. Hello, sweetie.
Hello.
How are you doing? How did the errands go? And tell us about the weather and the animals. We would love to hear goat updates. It's about priorities. Let's see. What I got done was I got a pee break in, which was great. And I put my makeup away, which was like where I was like sticking my tongue out, just trying to like shove it into the little drawers that I have. So organizing. That's a big deal for me. ADHD does not help to stay organized.
So Glory, can I ask, you may be offended at how I word it, but I'm going to do my best, okay?
Oh dear. Okay, let's hear it.
So I know that when someone has ADHD, it can affect different areas of that person. Like, is yours like movement ADHD or like brain thinking too fast ADHD? Is that a good way to ask?
So yeah, it's from what I recall, like, so I do have, instead of ADD, I have ADHD.
Okay.
Which is the hyperactive version. And
okay.
I'm diagnosed by a doctor and a psychologist with it as an adult because my parents, after the whole taking me away to diagnose me with autism at the age of 6 and institutionalizing me against my parents' wishes, my parents were very shy to have me diagnosed with anything else, even Ehlers-Danlos. Like, so understandably, I did not get diagnosed till I was an adult, and I'd already gotten my first bachelor's degree. And that was sort of like the kind of gift I gave myself for graduating with honors was now I'll see if I, in fact, do have ADD. My mother had already been diagnosed. And if I do, in fact, have ADD, as sort of like a way and I'm not saying other people that I would judge anyone else for this, but for me, it was, if I do in fact have it, then I can congratulate myself for actually getting a bachelor's degree, because it was monumentally difficult for me.
Yeah.
I had absolutely no accommodations, nothing. And I also was able to graduate with honors. And that was honestly like by the skin of my teeth. I graduated with honors because my grades were bad and I brought them up. So it was like kind of wanting to acknowledge that there was a reason for it that wasn't, oh, Glory's just lazy and doesn't want to apply herself kind of thing, with all those negative things that I was told by teachers as a kid and as a teenager. So, however,
so the reason I was asking is my oldest got recently diagnosed with ADHD. But her, like, I was a little surprised, not totally 100% surprised. I was just a little surprised because she's not like the typical bouncing off the walls, always have to be in motion. Like,
does she need to touch things though?
Yeah, like hers is like touching things and having to like fiddle with things while she's sitting, like her body is still, but we have a lot of Play-Doh and slime in the house. Like not like slime, but like butter slime and Play-Doh and like
that website, Glory.
Which website?
The one that had all the really fun things for ADD and ADHD kids to like play with. They had everything from wristbands. I think it's where we got that brush. That's the all plastic brush one.
Oh, you mean the fidget site with all the sitting stuff?
Yeah. Because like they were actually all reasonably priced.
Oh, yes. Okay. I will have to find it because I know they have a Tumblr account and that's what I subscribe to. And that's actually how I found them. But it's a mom. I think it's a mom. It's a parent. I'll say it's a parent. And who has a kid who always needed STEM and sourcing for their child. You know, like it's cheaper if you buy in bulk. And so they started doing that. But then they became so popular that they actually were able to start commissioning specific shapes and stuff to be manufactured, and it's like silicone stuff. Everything's very safe to chew on. But
and
yeah,
you
they
can just put into the dishwasher to sanitize.
Right, and they sold all these other fidgets, and I oh yes, it was wonderful. I kept so many of these fidgets at work, and then regular neurotypical people would borrow them from my desk and not return them, and I have to hunt them down. Rude. But yeah, so they're wonderful for everyone, and not just like children or not just autism and ADHD kids. They're just lovely, but yeah, that one brand. I'll have to find that maybe during the next sprint. I'll see if I can find their account on Tumblr and share it. They're just so sweet. They're just lovely people. But yeah, I bought a whole box of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, like when she was 4, her pediatrician was like, if she was 8, I'd say she had ADHD, but she's 4, so maybe she's just because she's smart. She is smart. Like, we had her assessed. The doctor only let her be assessed because her middle sister is on the spectrum. So they're like, oh, let's see if there's something going on there. So we had her assessed, and during the assessment, they tested her IQ level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't completely. It's pretty high up there. It was a high number. So part of her ADHD is that her thought process speed is like as a 12-year-old, but then her IQ level is like up high. So that's part of the issue there too. But yeah,
so
I was just curious.
To get bored.
Yes, bored, and then always having to like touch stuff, and then putting stuff in her mouth like pencil erasers.
Yeah, that's why it's like we find this website because there's a lot of oral stuff still going on, and it's like give them something that's a little bit safer. Pencil erasers are never a good one.
No.
But we are all tempted at that age. It's like, but it's right there.
When I was a kid, and even as an adult, like one of the treats I used to get from my mother in particular was a trip to the fabric store or the craft store, just so I could touch everything. Because like particularly the fabric store is wonderful to run your fingers against all the different textures, and it's free.
So my middle daughter, Ileana, the one that has autism, she enjoys going to Joann's fabric store with me so she can touch the foam.
Yes.
That's her favorite thing to do is touch the foam. I love
touching all the fabric, everything, the sequin, the flannels, the tulle. Oh, yes. I'm all about it. So that was used to be a treat that my mother would give me. Like, if you will wash the dishes without complaining, I will take you with me to the fabric store on Saturday. And they're like, okay, I could do that, and that was like, and it really was a treat because like I could pretty much stay for at least 2 hours. Just, like mom would let me stay there and just stroke all the fabric, everything, the fake furs, the muslins, everything. And she would even like teach me what all the different fabrics were called. So at least, it would be an educational trip. So I'm very familiar with brocades and jacquards and all that, because I know what I like to touch. But yeah, let's see. Okay, the goats are walking in the snow melt mud more than the snow. Maybe they just like mud. I don't know. Poor humans having to shovel their pens so they don't get their precious hoofies cold. Yes, they're so loved. All right. So, Tom, what are we talking about?
Why don't you put my screen in the main one?
Okay. Doom Patrol.
Because Because I figured, like, as we've learned, you start with the positive before you talk about negatives. Because it's much easier to build up a very tall mountain than it is to dig yourself out of a deep hole. Just humans. So let's talk about Doom Patrol. I mean, you enjoyed it. There's a reason why you binged it.
There's several reasons, actually. Yes.
It's just sort of, it is semi-coincidence, I'm going to just claim, versus no, this was actually what I was planning.
Stephanie, have you happened to have a chance to watch Doom Patrol?
I have not watched it. Should I watch it?
I would highly recommend it, actually. And we'd be happy to help you, be able to watch it. After the show, we'll talk and we'll figure out how Stephanie can watch it.
Yeah. So the reason why, though, this all comes up, and why particularly I think Doom Patrol is a great case in point, is there's so much representation going on, and it's not a lot of tokening. I mean, truth be told, the only really token character, as far as like the way they are, is the Timothy Dalton white male British character. Like, they are actually about as close to a token character in this, because everyone,
he's definitely the more nefarious character.
Yeah,
who gets regular screen time.
But he gets, everyone trusts him because he's a white male and he has a British accent. I mean, it's Timothy Dalton. Who doesn't want to hear him talk? But every decision this character makes is the wrong decision. True. Like, if anything, you're just taught, do not trust this person.
They do not
regret it every time.
Yeah, this person does not have good opinion. Chief.
But
the character's Chief.
Yeah, and that's close one to where them being a white male does sort of show up as part of their character. Versus everyone else, that's not the main point of their character. That's not why they move the story forward and we're interested in them. I mean, you go to the character immediately behind him, the tallest one, made out of metal. And he was originally white male. I mean, it's played by Brendan Fraser, who, surprisingly, I do enjoy hearing him emote. And he emotes a lot.
He has a lot to emote about, character-wise.
And he definitely has communication problems, so could be on the spectrum, might not be.
I did honestly wonder if they were trying to do a subtle autism spectrum disorder, because he's an adult when he became, I think the character's name is Robot Man. I mean, it's really genuinely terrible. I love all the DC characters' names. They're just they're so obvious. But Robot Man, he's an adult, and yet he's very emotional. We would say short fuse. Very low on the social skills, which is kind of unusual for someone who's more than a little bit out of high school. He's very much a full-grown adult. He's got a young daughter, and he just absolutely seems to be clueless social skills wise. So
yeah, you
can make an argument that maybe they were trying to code or autism bait a little bit. I don't know.
It's hard to tell, or if it's just it's an easy it's an easy character to have who's got a short fuse and is a bit of a man child.
Yeah.
And even the other one that you could almost claim, we note a lot about her being a white female, on the right side. She is a very old movie actress, actually. One of the side effects of all of them is they're actually all quite old.
Yeah, Cyborg's not that old.
True. Cyborg is the youngin of this group.
Yeah, because even the little girl, she's her character's 103 something years old as far as life on Earth.
Yeah.
Even though character-wise she's 11, but she's been 11 for 90 something years.
Yeah. And it does actually come up in the first season about why is it that all these characters are aging so slowly? Why have they seemingly stopped aging? And it is sort of actually how they got brought together. But I don't want to talk too much about that because that is a spoiler part.
Right.
But so even though she's a white woman, and we do get this character does show a lot of aspects.
Second worst character personality wise, as far as like,
yeah,
being a raging terrible person, like just prejudice,
always was
bigotry, yeah, you name it. She's definitely done some and said some really bad stuff. And so again, we're like, yeah, okay, that's on brand, I guess.
Versus, in the back right, Jane, who is supposed to be Hispanic. We don't really know that much about her racial background, and even for that matter, that much of her gender background, except where it shows up in the story. She is not tokenized the way we often see people who are not white tokenized. Most of hers is about her personality and her, dissociative identity disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And even there, it's probably actually one of the most honest portrayals.
Yeah, I was very impressed.
Of, how DID actually works and how those people function. Again, most people who have, what were considered mental diseases or mental disorders are not a threat to people, to the vast majority of the populace. They're more often taken advantage of and are endangered by everyone else.
Yes.
And we see that a lot from her perspective of how, they take advantage of her because she's female, because she's not mainstream.
And we partly, I think, like the first time I realized, like I had kind of wondered, I knew the actress is a person of color, but I had kind of wondered character-wise. But then in the first season, she's called a slur twice by two different groups. Once in a punk pit, like a rock concert type or something, and another by orderlies in a mental institution. And so we do see that others identify her as a person of color. But as far as her own character growth and what we see as far as like her own autonomy, she definitely does not appear to be character-wise tokenized, which is refreshing and lovely. Neither do they shy from away, like, somehow, where like the characters almost seems like they're written as white, but yet the casting is not. So it's like this sort of character whitening of it. It's odd. They did not do that. So that we see, I think it might be season 2 where we find out more about Jane's mother. Mm-hmm. And we see that her family, her mother is also Hispanic, and this does play a minor part of her upbringing, background, or origin story. So it was very nice. It was interesting, and I've had several friends diagnosed with DID, and I'm here to say everything I saw was very on point, and rather than the portrayals like in Split and other ones that are terrible, that if anything are highly inaccurate and hurtful, this was like the most accurate representation I've ever seen in Hollywood of DID, which was like fascinating. And I was truly like a moth to a flame, like, go on, talk to me.
And I just want to show we do eventually see inside her mind, and even inside her mind, not all of her alters look like herself.
Which is accurate. Some will, for most people with DID, some will, and some don't. Because it has to do with why that character or why that alter was created.
Like you see the punk one right behind the main actress looks very much like her. And then you see on the opposite side, both on the left are white characters. And, there's a variety inside her head. Again, it's not just they're not going too light and they're not going too overly Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Also, and, far less, and truly an interesting contrast versus Legion, which, again, just played up the threatening role of DID.
Such a disappointment.
Yeah. Legion's answer after 3 seasons was, the only solution is to get rid of the person. They're a problem. There's no helping them. We just have to get rid of them. And it's like, that is an awful answer.
Which we will go more into this. We do have planned an episode about autism and disassociation. So we will actually go over this a bit more in detail in that episode.
And then, of course, one of your favorite characters.
You're talking about Negative Spirit?
On the left. Negative Man.
Yeah, Negative Man or Negative Spirit or whatever. I can't keep up. Oh, he doesn't mean the character's my favorite. He means the actor Matt Bomer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What a disappointment that man is gay. I think he's gay. Like, oh, yes. It's like if only. Mm-hmm. He checks all the buttons for me.
And again, he is one of the things you find out early on is that his character as well is gay. But his character is also married and has a son. Or two sons, actually, I think.
Yeah.
But again, he's not tokenized. He's not played up as, oh, he's a gay character, so he must act in a certain way.
Oh,
and, all these Hays Code things. We see him as just a regular human.
It was so refreshing to not see internalized Hays Code in characters.
And then Cyborg, that I think a lot of people actually kind of prefer from what they've seen in the movie versions and elsewhere, because Cyborg is is barely more than a teenager here. I think he's what, 22, I think, in this, or 23. I can't remember how long it was since the accident.
Yeah, I thought they said 5 years, but that was season 2, I think, when they said 5 years from the accident.
And so we get to see him just be a young person in this. He actually brings the young perspective. He is not bringing, the black perspective or anything. He is just being himself.
Right. I mean, there's also his father does have a recurring role, as well as, and I hope this doesn't spoil anything for anybody, but season 2, he also has a girlfriend who is also African American. And it's nice to see a diversity of characters. I hate it when there's just one person of, say, that racial background, and then they're essentially having to hold up like as an example for all of it. It's terrible. It's like, excuse me, why do we only have one African American person or one Hispanic person or one Asian? What is that about? Which, and by the way, in season 1 there is my favorite Asian comedian. Who plays, what is that character's name? It's so weird with the dinosaur head. Is it dinosaur head? It's like the worst.
No, it's the villain's name is what is it? 20 Questions. It's animal.
Animal, vegetable, mineral man or something.
Yeah,
it's just the worst name. Oh, they kill me with it. It's so hilarious. And they do kind of bring that character into season 2 as well. Because by season 2 he's written a book about his experience as animal, vegetable, mineral man or something. It's Googling in real time.
Woohoo.
Let's see it.
I mean, really, you got to see this character.
Oh yeah, like the down and to the left, that second row to the left. Oh, it's cut it off. Darn it. There. Yeah, like, do you see? This is just, like, nonsense. And he's got a plant for a hand. It's just... it's so messed up. It's fantastic. And he really does play it for comedy. And I love that. Because because I loved him from Ugly Betty. I loved it when he would do, the news flash. And, oh, I loved that guy. And by the way, he does have a stand-up special. Mwah! So talented.
Yeah.
Truly, like, honestly, his stand-up special convinced me to definitely look into fostering children when I have a bigger apartment. So, yeah. But anyhow, it's the craziest character. Why does DC have such strange and obvious names for anyway?
They're not creative, I guess. I don't know.
It's like they're over the top. Like, they're like, you know what? Who cares?
But I mean, like, with Cyborg, we also got to see with his girlfriend these two very different perspectives where Cyborg is young, so he still believes all the stuff he's been told.
Yeah,
so he's very much, yes, anyone commits crime, have the cops deal with him, have the criminal justice system deal with him. And the person who becomes his girlfriend's like, no, they didn't do anything major. They weren't even trying to really be violent. They were just trying to steal my purse. We can let him go this time. Because the system could just destroy their life. We get to see these different perspectives.
It's very refreshing. It's very nice. And what I also love about the entire show, like first and second season, is the editing is at a very nice pace. It keeps moving. Like, for instance, the other day I watched the original Blade Runner movie, and I'm just like, oh, am I the only person who thinks this movie is so slow? And the answer is no. When I would read the Wikipedia article, I was like, oh no, critics were split on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with my ADD, ADHD, it's like, yeah, please, can we have, like, keep moving? Got to keep my attention.
But yeah, that's that's what we're talking about. Like, there are positive ways to do it. Like, none of them are defined by their token qualities. Even animal, vegetable, mineral, we don't care that much about.
Excuse me.
The actor, the actor's racial background. We care about the whole character and what is this insanity. I mean, he's got a little, T-Rex head on his shoulder
that regularly reacts and bites him, the human head.
Yeah. To
voice its discontent. I don't know. It's over the top ridiculous, and I love it.
I really should watch this.
Yes, it's lovely. And like, good. To quote CB, it's a hot mess, and I adore that. And by the way, CB, I do also call myself a hot mess, and I mean it with love and compassion, because if you're not out there making mistakes, are you really living then?
Let's see, was there anything else in there?
Yes, continue, Tom.
Well, actually, that's what I'm trying to think of. Like, was there anything else in Doom Patrol to really kind of bring up? Because, I mean, to be honest, we just enjoyed the refreshingness of something different. It's also something, like, I've talked with Glory about, and I've noticed this. And so why was Doom Patrol really good? Why is it so different than the DC movies? After the first season, they talked with the showrunner about this, of like, this is so different than a lot of the DC movies and other stuff, even though these obviously have good budgets. Like, these are not small budget shows. And the answer was, the only show note they had to deal with was Cyborg has to show up at some point in the first season, because they were going to bring Cyborg, I think, into the CW Arrowverse or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so they needed, Cyborg to show up in that first season. That was the only show note. And so they could just tell a story as they wanted. Versus DC movies have so many show notes and executive producers, and they're trying to appeal to the most general populace that a lot of the story gets lost. And that's kind of our complaint, actually, with WandaVision. We enjoyed it the first 3 episodes, and then the 4th one really lost us.
So I haven't watched WandaVision. Apparently I need to carve more time out to watch these TV shows. But I've seen it, like, obviously you have to be underneath a rock not to know WandaVision is out there. I've seen it, I just haven't watched it. Is it in its first season right now?
Yes, yeah. WandaVision is.
Okay.
I say, to me, the easy way to improve WandaVision is just skip episode 4.
Or come back to episode 4 at the end of the season, maybe. I don't know yet, because I'm going to keep watching it.
Because probably around episode 8, that's when you can watch episode 4. Yeah, because it's outside the show. Okay. Like, the main show of Wanda and Vision are these weird, quirky send-ups to shows of the past, of Brady Bunch, of what was it called? Of Lucille Ball.
Oh, I Love Lucy.
I Love Lucy. and the set designs reflect it.
Yes.
And those are all great and entertaining, and you're kind of wondering what's going on. And then the 4th episode coddles to all those people who are like, no, I can't watch anymore because I'm too confused. I need all answers. And so they just literally go ahead and answer everything, all the little mysteries real quick.
Oh.
And it's like, that ruins the story. So like, I think just slight reordering of episode numbers.
Yeah, that's what I'm really hoping.
Make a better show.
Yeah, keep it.
Yeah, CB says that they haven't seen any of WandaVision either. Neither have I. I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, no, we don't want to spoil anything, but like, just.
But that's what you're saying. Like, just skip episode 4, and you'll probably be happier.
And then come back at the end.
Because like the first episode is 1950s, the second episode is 1960s, the third episode is 1970s. So I presume the 5th episode will be 1980s. Like, it's fun seeing also these send-ups of all the sitcoms of that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it truly is like an homage. It's just, like to each of these decades of sitcom shows. Because like, I grew up watching a lot of these past popular sitcoms, like not just I Love Lucy, but the Donna Reed show and Father Knows Best. And, all of those big name shows. Car 54. I mean, like, yeah, I watched all of those as a kid because I had insomnia. And so I would watch Nick at Night in the middle of the night when we had.
Okay.
And I would catch up on all these. Plus, like, even local stations, like ABC and the local affiliates would late at night show all these old episodes, black and white and color. And so I was very familiar with these. And so it was so nice to see, loving homages to these beloved TV franchises, I guess is what we maybe call it.
I can't find a good picture because I wanted to show the what's her name in the first episode from that 70s show?
Oh yeah, the woman who played Kitty.
Yeah,
on that 70s show
shows up as a wife, and she's just fun as can be, playing roughly the same character of Kitty.
Good times, yeah. So it's really sweet and loving, and again, I don't think this is spoiling anything because this has nothing to do with where the show goes. It's just simply these are people who show up, these actors, and so it's really nice.
Versus, we can definitely recommend binging Doom Patrol season 1 and 2.
Just having a good time with those. Yeah, I think I don't know if everyone would enjoy it, but we certainly loved it. So do let us know if you did enjoy it and let us know why. We would love to hear why, actually. Or if you loved it and why you liked it. I would love to hear that because the entire rest of the planet's inhabitants are a mystery to me. And so it's like, yes, more data. Tell me everything you loved and didn't love.
Although having said all that, Doom Patrol is definitely a TVMA series. It is not for kids or tweens.
All right.
Unless without adult supervision.
Yeah, season 2 definitely gets more mature. There's an episode called Sex Patrol.
Okay.
And it's like an homage to Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Yeah.
With love again, I say with love. It's a hot mess, and I loved every minute of it. I almost went to go wake up Tom, even though I knew he'd seen it already. I'm like, wake up! This is outrageous, and I love it. So,
if there's a movie that I haven't watched, my husband haven't watched, I usually one of us watches it, just so that we know, like some rated R movies are okay. So, Die Hard is rated R because of the violence and the swear words are in there like after the first half of the movie, but they're not like horrible. To me, they're not horrible swear words. So I was like, yeah, let's watch it. It's totally fine. And I was talking to me and my husband were talking to the kids, and we're like, there's some movies that are rated R that are a cartoon and you can't watch it, and then there's other movies that are like PG-13 and it should be rated R or whatnot. And so then they're like, what movies are rated R as a cartoon? I said, well, there was this movie that we went to go see, and it's set in a grocery store, and all the characters are grocery store items, and and I said, there's a girl that's a taco, and she likes other girl tacos, and my daughter got what she meant by I meant by that. And then it's like at the very end, they all have a party, and the kids are like, "What kind of party?" So I mouthed the word, the O word, to my oldest daughter. She's like, "Oh, she knew. She's 12. She knew what it meant." Like, And so the other two kids are like, the other two kids are like, "What did you mean? What did you say?" I'm like, "Doesn't matter. It was for Hannah. No one else." Let's move on.
Like you watch it ahead of your children, and then you can kind of figure out which episodes are fine and which ones aren't. Of like, there is like 1 or 2 scenes, and they're not that long, but still like there's sex scenes between what's his name?
Brendan Fraser's human character.
Yeah.
And his daughter's nanny, back when he was a human, like not in a robot body. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they don't even actually last that long. They're usually like 10 seconds.
They really don't show like. Well, I think there's a breast. I do think there's a breast. So it's like, it depends on you and your comfort level, and what you allow your children to see. Like when we were growing up, our mother was very much body positive. So one day when I was 10, we moved into an apartment that still had cable and HBO from the previous people who rented it. They hadn't canceled it. So, and again, remember, I've mentioned a lifetime of insomnia. And so I got up in the middle of the night, and on HBO was this movie called The First Nudie Musical with Cindy Williams and Albert Brooks. And let me tell you, it's full bushes. So, and I'm 10, but I'm like sitting there just going, they're dancing and they're nude. I mean, and there's like a cast of characters and they're all naked. And my mother gets up and she's like, "Oh, First Nudie Musical. I love this movie. Move over," on the couch. And we sat and watched it together. And believe me, I felt very uncomfortable. But afterwards, and Mom stayed for the whole thing. There wasn't, there was like 45 more minutes of the movie. It wasn't that great a movie. But I was, at being 10, I was mostly there watching it for the nudity and also the music. And afterwards, she was like, "So, do you have questions?" And I'm like, will I one day have that much hair? And she's like, only time will tell. Because but she did admit, like, I think that they were wearing wigs down there. And there's a name for it. Do you want to know what the name for it is? I'm like, there are wigs for that? And she's like, yes, it's called merkins. And those wigs have been around for literally hundreds of years. And I was like, huh. So, like, as I said, like, my mother was more open about body parts. Like, a breast is a breast. It's no big deal. It's not the end of the world if you're 10 and you see a breast. Breasts are fine. So it just sort of depends on people's what their comfort level is and what they're doing with their kids. I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
No, like we are pretty open about things. But so I watched that cartoon movie a few years ago. Yeah. So, my cousin's friend told him about it. I was like, "You should go see it. It's really good." And so we went to go see it. I think it was on for Valentine's Day. Like halfway through the movie, I turned to my husband and I was like, "I need to bleach my eyeballs out. This is horrible. Like, This is so horrible, but you can't like stop looking at it and watching it."
Why did they make this movie?
Yes. Like, why? And there's mostly adults in the movie that are watching it, and it wasn't totally full. It wasn't a full movie theater house because we watched it like earlier in the day, but there was like this 10-year-old kid sitting there with like an older person down in the front row. I'm like, oh, and I told that kid, like, you're never allowed to watch that until you're like 30, maybe. I'm like, no, actually, you're never allowed to watch that ever. You'll be scarred for life.
Yep. And then, of course, my mother had to explain to me why did they have merkins for the last like 400 years. And because that was kind of like the basis of my mother's bachelor's degree. Was, more anthropological, if you will. And she's like, well, that was how you deal with pest control. So if you were a prostitute, you had an issue with pests like fleas and crabs and such. So you would shave all of that. And then in order to appear normal, you would then put a merkin on so that your customers would feel at ease. But it was essentially for easier cleaning and to deal with pest control.
Oh. So, do you know how old I was when I learned about American?
I could not guess.
Today.
I was today's years old.
Yes.
TIL. Yeah. So at 10, I knew what a merkin was, and that and by the way, it is true that families would pass down merkins from generation to generation because wigs can last a long time when they're handmade. So so they have, like, in the Smithsonian as well as all over Europe, they have all these merkins in their collections. Fascinating stuff, weirdness. So it's show you.
But also, to bring up America's weird views about sex and violence, of the nudity is always over censored versus the violence is usually under censored. Like, a decade ago, I rewatched for like the first time in a decade, since I was a kid, the Transformers movie. And I'm just watching this going,
about the original cartoon movie, or
the original. You're right, the original cartoon movie. And I am watching this just in true, like, the only reason this is PG is because it came out in the 80s and it was a cartoon. Because just the sheer violence and gore was incredible. And it was like, this was marketed to kids?
Yeah, I remember watching it.
So speaking of TV show and movie ratings, I found this out the other day because we have a bunch of movies on our hard drive, and they're not the titles don't have the PG or the movie ratings. So we were going through and finding out what the ratings were, and some of them didn't have ratings. Like Grease was not rated, and a couple other ones weren't rated. And so I went down my research rabbit hole, like I do, and having a movie rating or a TV rating is entirely voluntary. It's not required. And it wasn't a thing like the rated G, PG, PG-13, and R wasn't a thing until like 1970s.
Yeah.
And the only reason, and the people that are on the board are like normal day-to-day people, like parents and teachers and stuff. And the whole reason that they started having a PG ratings or the TV rating system was so that families could be better educated at what they should and could watch together as a family at home or at the movie theater, which is why, like, prior to like 1977, give or take, TV shows and movies didn't have the ratings of like PG-13 or rated PG-13 and then like those other symbols after that were like mature audiences or language or violence or sex or whatever. So did you know that it was voluntary to participate in the ratings? I didn't know that.
There's actually a documentary about that. Because they can refuse to rate your movie if they don't like it.
Yes.
And most theaters will not show it if it's not rated.
Which is the incentive for movies to get rated.
Yeah, so there is some censorship.
Voluntary, but I mean, obviously you want to get it rated.
Yep.
And a lot of times musicals are just not rated. Like a lot of times musicals are not rated.
Versus, I don't care as much about the rating other than if they give it sort of a sense of intensity. But I do really like, like before movies and shows, here's the things we noticed in this movie that are of note. Yeah, like, is it mild language? Or my favorite, language throughout. AKA, they're not going to stop cursing at any point. You should know this going in.
Yes. So
we go on another little break?
Yeah, do we want to do a break? Okay. What do we want to do, a 15-minute? Or what? Do we want to do another 10? What do you want? Tell me what we're doing and I will find one.
Let's just do another 10. Just sort of
10's good.
I need a little bathroom break.
Okay, how about Laura's Vanilla Pumpkin Marshmallow Candle?
Okay.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
In 3, 2, 1, sprint. Beep, 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 beep. Welcome back.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. How did
So-
everybody do?
So Tom got a snack. What'd you do?
Yeah, Tom came in my room and got the oatmeal cookies. Yeah.
Ooh. Any kind of mother's cookies are good.
Yes.
And everybody in my household can eat them.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
I crocheted more of the fingerless gloves. And before that, I continued my search for measuring tape because my little retractable roll has disappeared. Welcome to the Hot Mess Express. I'll be your conductor.
Do you have a cat? Did the cat take it? I mean, I'm pretty sure you don't have any kids running around, so
I'm blaming gremlins on this, but it's mostly probably just my ADHD, if I'm brutally honest. Especially the fact that I have like literally 8 or 10 measuring tapes in this house, and I cannot find a single one. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Anyway, so, and then I thought about what is my issue? Like, what is like, so this whole media representation episode, I'm like, I can't quite get, my mind around of like how to talk about it or what I want to say. And so the nice part about crocheting is it often helps me process through, if that makes any sense, because there is a mind-body connection, and not just for neurodivergence, but everyone, neurotypicals included, there's an interesting little fact about as our hands move, our brains process at approximately the same rate. So it's almost like our brains have to keep pace with the movement of our fingers. And it's not just our fingers. It's like it can be anywhere on the body. So like that's why people sometimes find walking to be helpful for thinking through a problem. It's just something about that pacing is
Or
very
just
helpful.
exercise.
Yeah, any kind of movement. I'm just saying, like where there's probably a beat to it, is very useful for the mind to help process through problems. So I guess I would say I had a little bit of a breakthrough. I do have something to say about the whole idea and my issue with media representation, period, and why I just don't know quite what to say. So anyway, I'm gonna save that though. How did you do, Stephanie?
I got a bowl of snacks.
Oh,
We went to Costco yesterday, and I got their artichoke parmesan dip made with Greek yogurt. It's over halfway gone. My stomach does not like it, but I'm not caring right now. Like when I say my stomach doesn't like it, I got tested for celiac disease because every time I eat anything, I load up so that my stretch marks from my stomach when I was pregnant with my last son is stretched even more. That's how bad it blowed up. It's not like it's a lot. So I've been just doing like a food diary of like what I tried doing an elimination diet. My doctor's like, well, until you get to see the allergist, just do like brown rice for 4 days and then add a new food. Yeah. Brown rice did not. It was not okay. Just not. Like I loaded up so bad. Like I said, you know what? I'm just gonna do my own thing, and I'm just gonna like eat one item by itself, and then just see what happens. Like just record what happens. So
you're talking like because we've talked in the past about your bloating or the gas that you sometimes experience, and that has actually made me more aware of my own gas buildup. And I've noticed because like you talking about it a couple months ago or weeks ago, whatever,
right? Yeah.
has made like it really kind of like made me become more aware about my own. And I started noticing it. However, mine is related to my blood sugar numbers. But that has been very useful for me to like be able to understand more about how my body's functioning. So
and then also there's
thank you, because that's been actually really useful for me to like deal with gas and so on.
So and then there's that weird part for you about the rice of where for Glory. Fresh rice and recooked rice, not the same effect.
Yes, and that's something that we know scientifically it's been studied. that recooked rice or reheated rice has a lower glycemic index number than fresh cooked rice.
Okay.
So I do not have as big of a glucose jump or blood sugar jump with recooked rice or reheated rice as I do with fresh rice. It's something that I have to be aware of too. So yeah, I had sushi last night, so you better believe my blood sugar was a bit higher, which I knew was going to happen. So I took some extra insulin. So I was craving it so bad. So it's like, we're just doing it.
Yeah, and it's weird because all these foods that I've like brown rice, white rice, potatoes, like any kind of potatoes, any kind of cereal, except like there's one cereal I can have that doesn't make me bloat up at all. And it does say gluten-free on it, so I'm going to try more cereals that say gluten-free on there. It's the Fruity Pebbles cereal I can have, but it doesn't affect me that way. Dairy, I can have any kind of dairy. The other day I made macaroni and cheese, and I took like 2 bites of it, and not only did I bloat up like insane within like 10 minutes of eating it, my stomach hurt. I can't have like any kind of bread, pasta, like all that good stuff. So another food that I found out today, just by my process elimination, is eggs make me bloat up as well. But we got this book about the anti-inflammatory diet, and like eggs is one of those things that can cause people to bloat up. So who knows? But we just named the baby and me a different name each day. So it's fine. And when I say I bloat up,
yeah.
See,
like I started noticing, like, oh, my stomach sometimes does that, and I
can't even press it in. That's how bloated it is. Like it's a firm, pregnant belly. It's depends on what I eat throughout the day. By the end of the day, sometimes the bloat is so bad that I can't take a deep breath. So.
Yes, I experienced that as well sometimes. And it was only after, us talking about it a few weeks ago, and you even like showing, remember it was behind the scenes after the show?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Showing me your belly, and I'm like, and then it wasn't until later, like maybe a couple weeks later, that I'm like, oh, wait, my belly looks like that.
I mean, I don't mind, like, I don't care, like, people looking at my stomach, it's fine.
Yeah, like the gas moves, so it's not like a permanent situation.
It's hilarious, like, prior to pandemic times, like I'd be like at the bowling alley, and I'd be in the bar, and I'd be drinking a drink, and my hand would just rest on my overly bloated belly, and I got some weird looks because I'd look like I'm freaking pregnant.
Right, and like I would notice, like when my belly would do that, I would sometimes notice I was a little out of breath because it was like pushing upwards on my lungs. So yeah, it has been interesting, but I only noticed it because you talked about it first.
So like there's not a lot of foods that I'm able to eat, not because of the bloating, but because of the tasting. So I also have multiple sclerosis, which a lot of you know. And because of that, my taste buds are all out of whack. It's the political thing, the polite thing to say, all out of whack. So much out of whack that like most meats and like poppy seed muffins and like other foods, it tastes like, I finally pinpointed what it tasted like. It tasted as if it had like a moldy, like it was moldy. But it was not, because I would taste it and I'm like, all right, husband, can you taste this? And he's gotten to the point, he's like, oh, okay, I'll just let you know if it tastes crappy, because that's why you're telling me to taste it, and it's fine. Like tuna fish tastes like it has ground up leftover coffee grounds in it, not the texture but the taste of it. And I'm a peculiar case, because a lot of times when people who have MS also have changes in their taste, sense of taste, they most always have a change in their sense of smell because they're connected. But my sense of smell is most excellent.
I feel for you.
So there's only like 2 types of meat that I've come across that I can eat. Like imitation crab, because I eat sushi and it's fine. Like it bloats a little bit, but imitation crab I can eat, and spam of all things. And then also bacon, like because that's what I did. Like I had kielbasa and eggs and I bloated up. I had kielbasa by itself, I bloated up, and then I had bacon and eggs and I bloated up, and then I had bacon all by itself, a whole package in one sitting because I was hungry and no change at all in my stomach. So, and it tasted fine too. Like there was nothing wrong with it. So it was just weird. It's just weird, like what things.
Well, so while like I do have a glucose sensitivity to fresh white rice, I noticed that I do not have an equal sensitivity to rice processed foods like rice noodles or Rice Krispies. So it seems like if the rice is processed further, I guess it becomes like a neutral starch for my body. And I do not see that same glucose spike that I see with just fresh, plain rice. And that includes brown rice as well, which I also like. My mouth doesn't even want to chew it. It's just my mouth's like, no, hard pass on the brown rice. Which
like I'm not a rice fan, but I was like, all right, I'll give the stupid elimination diet a try.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
And after I didn't make it 4 days, so after the third day, it was just it was just horrible. And I'm not gassy; it's just super bloated, and it's within like 10 to 15 minutes after I eat something. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have time to like totally digest.
Yeah, it's very obviously like a direct reaction.
Yes, but I don't have like hives or anything like that. But you know, my youngest has issues with preservatives. So I'm like, well, maybe it's preservatives. But I'm like, the stuff that I had reactions to, there's no preservatives in it. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know.
It continues.
Yes.
Yeah, there's discussion in the chat about Red 40, which, yes, Tom was very nicely explained. Like, yeah, I can't do Red 40. My muscles get very, very tense and I can't sleep for literally days. And I mean, I go a little psychotic for like the lack of any sleep for like 3-4 days. It doesn't go great. However, interestingly enough, I am somehow able to actually detox from accidentally ingesting Red 40 now by eating an entire head of romaine lettuce. Like just whether I dip it in ranch or not doesn't matter. I have been known and so desperate for sleep that I'll just literally munch an entire head of romaine, and about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I have a usual bowel movement, and then I sleep like a baby again from the exhaustion, and because it's out, like it's very dense and hard bowel movement, and the best I can figure is it's the Red 40 moving out. I don't know what's happening, because that's not normal I normally have very nice BMs. Everything it's nice. And I've always paid attention to that because, yeah, our mother's background is Russian Jews, and Russian Jews are, for some reason, obsessed with BMs. So we grew up in that culture. Like, it's literally the, top 10 things to talk about in a Russian Jewish household.
Yes.
Is, top number 3 is BMs. How are your BMs today? Even with people they don't know well, they talk about this. So we've always been used to, like, being aware of our own status.
And being siblings, we have been occasionally known to, like, you don't know how much I love you. I almost dragged you to go look at what I just did.
And this is true. I have been known to take pictures of the toilet afterwards because I was like, this was amazing. And so now it's like all I could do not to message him. But when we were in California 10 years ago, I remember that Taco Bell, I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Take a picture of this thing.
Taco Bell, I can only imagine.
It was impressive and beautiful in its own way. So,
the line is, it didn't just go above the water line.
It snaked around twice. It was amazing. Look, it was amazing and beautiful in its own way. It's just what I'm saying. So anyway, God, what were we talking about? Media representation. So anyway, how did everybody do? Was there?
No numbers.
Done?
No.
Okay. I crocheted a bit and I thought about things. All right.
Although, real quick, speaking of all diets and other things and things we have noticed, although we still haven't heard this one come up, but this one reminded me about gallbladders. So, if you want to keep your gallbladder, based on, I'm not joking, 6 people we've known who all had to have their gallbladder removed.
and speaking with their surgeon and their doctors, their physicians about this.
Do not go on ultra low fat diets.
Yeah, that is apparently like the number one way to have your gallbladder removed is to do these extreme low fat diets. Low fat.
For at least for at least 6 months to a year. 5 years later, almost everyone has their gallbladder removed.
Like
something happens.
Have said.
Yeah, something happens in the body. It doesn't like the situation. The gallbladder gets upset, and next thing you know, that's right. Just throw the kitty around.
I love it. It's very cat-like. Hello, cutie. Hello, sweet baby. Oh, I want to pet you.
Look at that. I've been caught. I did nothing wrong, I swear.
Like a real criminal.
She's so fat. She's a year old and she's 10 pounds.
Yes. But she is loving living with children.
All right. Apparently, I lied. She's not 10. She is now 15 pounds.
Oh, good Lord.
What?
Because she likes to eat. This lovely, adorable, beautiful looking cat will wake me up at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever time she thinks she needs to meow at me that her bowl is a little bit low of food. Not that it's empty, but it's like not, she likes it heaping. She doesn't like
the song of my people. Where is my food?
And it's not like meow. She'll be like, and higher pitch and higher pitch. And we have a covered cat box, and it's not that far from our bedroom. And so like she'll sit on it and she'll like meow. The other day she sat on my face and meowed. I'm like, I'm gonna throw you across the room, man. One of these days, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Oh, and she likes eating like potato chips. She doesn't like Cool Ranch Doritos. She likes the cheddar and sour cream Pringles, Ruffles, Ridges burrito chips. She likes she just got caught eating my dip out of my bowl. Do I have a banana nearby?
You know, for frame of reference, how big is the kitty?
Oh, okay.
And she's like, right. That cat is really tiny compared to hers, unless your hands are like 12 inches and just massive.
All right, so here is a book that's 5 by 8. Okay.
That cat does not look like it could possibly be 15 pounds.
No. Wait, really? 15? Good Lord.
Like it looks like it maybe is 10.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like 10 to 12.
Because remember, Andy was a mackerel tabby, and she weighed 12 pounds, and she had a bit of a belly.
Yeah.
She had that, what is it called? That little primordial or what?
Primordial paunch.
Yeah, Andy had a little primordial paunch that I like to play with. She hated.
59.
Okay, go get me the cucumber out of the fridge. We do have a cucumber.
Scale for the cucumber.
Hold on. All right, yeah, bring that here, buddy. That's a cucumber.
Eva.
Hey, it's okay.
Make it
right.
laugh.
It's a cucumber.
Good Lord.
I guess, yeah, okay. I guess it's just bigger.
Oh. She isn't afraid of cucumbers. Like, you've seen videos of cucumbers? Yeah.
She's like, not my problem.
All right. How much does he weigh now with the cat in his hands?
6. We're 66. So 7.
Oh, okay. She lost weight because we ran out of treats, so now she's down to 6.
I was about to say that cat looks slim. That's like, yeah.
Well, our cat
is not good for Kitty.
Our cat, it tried chewing, like eating the skin of the cucumber. Put the cat down.
11.
I thought you said 6.
We're gonna work on math. It's
Anna, you know math better than Jack. How much did you weigh?
Report back.
Okay. Newest report for someone that knows how to do math, apparently, is 11 pounds.
Okay. Yeah. The cat looks like it's about 10, 11 pounds.
Yeah, that's what I figure. Like, especially based on Andy.
Yeah, like
so, like that cat. So our neighbor gave my daughter some cat treats that her cat didn't like, and so that was when it started. Like her daughter would go to bed and she'd be like, "Meow, I want treats." So she would have treats, and then she would meow pitifully in the middle of the night for treats again. So I'd give her treats just so I'd make her shut up because it was 3 a.m. and I was tired and I do not have a toddler anymore in the house or a baby. but it felt like I was having another baby in the house. And so the other day, Jackson, put down the cat. The other day, I was like, husband, now that your ears are fixed and you can hear everything, I'm going to wake you up every time that cat wakes me up. Every time. Because my husband can hear better now, but like with him having the CPAP machine on, he doesn't always hear the cat. Although the cat is now laying on his head and meowing at him now, so it's fine.
So
it's so nice to have a CPAP on though, because it prevents the cat from having the power to choke you. And cats don't know how to handle that. Wait, I can't just choke you awake.
Like a real cat owner, Tom.
So my husband,
believe me, they get off you real quick when they get that stream of air that blows out from the nostril parts onto their belly, and they're like, oh, that's not nice. Why'd you do that?
Yeah. So like,
I'll
be right back. Okay, I'll be right back.
No problem. So anyhow, media representation. Okay. So this is what I was thinking about, was like, okay, how to summarize about it is the challenge that I see, because I have recently realized that pretty much most of my characters are autistic. Everything I write, let me be brutally honest, they're all autistic. And versus when neurotypical people are trying to write autistic characters, it's what they are going by is like a symptom base of, oh, these are the characteristics I see them displaying, therefore this is how I shall construct their character. So it's like they're using extrinsic, how the outside world perceives their behavior, rather than coming at it from an internal motivation for the character. Because the bottom line is, autistic people do approach the world in a different manner than neurotypicals normally do. So for instance, like there are certain things I could like explain. Like, so for instance, most autistic people perceive gender in a apparently a radically different way than neurotypical people do. In that neurotypical people seem very much into gender and gender boundaries, and neurodivergent people are just like, what? It's just a thing and it can change. Well, I'm glad that we have a survey of cat weights now. I feel like science is happening. This is the data gathering portion. So everybody's cats are approximately the same. This is interesting going in. But anyhow, and so that is my main concern and honestly frustration with a lot of autistic presenting characters, both in, books, TV, movies, anything, games, video games I think that, more than a few writers come at it with their heart in the right place. But again, as I said, they're coming at it like trying to construct a character from the outside in and really never having an understanding of internal motivation. And that we just literally perceive the world in such a radically different way from the way they do, that they would need to really work at educating themselves in order to do a good job at doing it. Or at least, and I know, so radical here, sensitivity readers. Can I recommend sensitivity readers? That would be so super awesome. Or at least in some way consulting with more than one autistic person. Hello, kitty.
Oh, that is a soft-looking kitty. I just want to pet that kitty.
That is Eva's cat.
Is that Eva's?
Yeah. Oh,
it's so sweet. I just want to pet it. Yes.
How's that book anyway? Ava, the obscure origin. Just curious.
So, okay. And anyone, please feel free to jump in, because that was like the main crux of my point of like my issue with and my difficulty in kind of wrapping my mind around how to summarize, what the reason I'm bringing up media representation as an issue worthy of an entire episode
Well, people then take whatever is in media as factual, even though it's not presented as factual. They still take it as, hey, this is how those situations work out. And they then repeat those behaviors, which is the real problem and why everyone at all related to the autism field is seemingly may seem to be like sort of freaking out about the Sia movie because it shows such a bad idea that no one in the medical industry would ever recommend or suggest. It is literally on the banned list of things to do to people in
Also,
almost all hospitals in the world.
The presentation. Well, I'm sorry. What'd you say, Steph?
What movie was Tom talking? Was he referring to
The
a
new
particular
Sia movie that I guess is coming out soon.
I think it's out now. It's called
is it
Music.
out?
I think it was it called Music. I think
Yeah.
it's just look up Sia and movie.
Okay.
But also because they're using a female presenting character, but they're presenting male, traditionally more commonly found autistic symptoms that are found in males rather than females. Female presentation of autism is dramatically different than male presentation. I mean, ironically, since most autistic people, male and female, are like gender, who cares? It's just a thing. It's a construct and we can change it anytime we want, which is kind of interesting. But that the brains do function somewhat differently. And the way it shows in the outside world, it becomes even more radically different. So, like, when I was growing up, and I just want to point out, like, it's something that Tom and I actually talked about, okay, so I don't know if everyone knows, but I'm going to say it again because I feel like it bears repeating. Autism Speaks is an autism hate group. It is not an autism advocacy group. It is a group that is centered on caregivers who care for autistic people, but what a burden, aren't these autistic people so burdensome and so troublesome manner, and they do not speak for autistic people. If anything, they actually it hurt autistic people.
Yeah.
And I mean, they hurt autistic people quite a lot, and they have for literally years, decades now. So I don't know where I was going. I lost it. I got so emotionally inside my head. I got so caught up of like, it's so cringy. No, it's like there's another abuser I can't even confront.
No, I understand what you mean. Like, so Autism Speaks, they focus more so on the family and how the child or the person in the family that has autism, how it affects everyone else. And they want to support everyone else in the household and try to get them like resources and of how they can have breaks during the day or, therapies for the people that don't actually have autism, because they look at it more as, how is this abnormal person in your household affecting everyone else? That's been my experience with Autism Speaks versus my local group that is not affiliated with Autism Speaks.
And there's nothing wrong with supporting caregivers of autistic people. I mean, they do need support. Absolutely. Yeah,
but it's like they support them and kind of just push.
Well, if anything, they're very negative toward the autistic person of like, gosh, it's so terrible. And they, if anything, seem to encourage caregivers of autistic people to vent their most negative and even violent thoughts about autistic people out into the public and in front of that autistic person without it actually being, let us say, a therapeutic environment where people, are in a safe space to have these very difficult conversations. So, I remember. So I was bringing up of like, how is Autism Speaks different from how our parents approached it? Because on the surface, sometimes like it could look, and again, since I do have struggle with communication, how I describe how our parents helped us cope with interacting with the outside world, it could sound like, oh, well, Autism Speaks advocates very similar training, but that is not true. So Autism Speaks, the more I say it, the harder it is to say. if anything, like when they're talking about dealing with autistic people, whether children or adults, they very much use a dog training or an animal training sort of mindset. And on the surface, it might appear that our parents use a similar perspective. However, I think what it really comes down to is our parents had a very different internal approach for the reasons why they were doing it. So, for instance, one of the things that I pleasantly found useful in our parents' approach to us as children and teenagers and even into our 20s was one of the little things that our parents did was they would bribe us to memorize poems and prose and other, passages. Now, that's not that different from Autism Speaks advice on how to deal with autistic children. However, the problem has to do with, and I say this as somebody who actually grew up and became an educator and then taught poetry memorization to a variety of ages of upper elementary children. Here's how it goes. So I was allowed as a child to pick out my favorite poems. We had several books of poetry, like a child's garden of verses, and then its competitor, a child's book of garden verses, or something like. There's some interesting competition. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I could pick out any poem and then show it to my parents, and they would approve or say, no, you could do a little bit longer one now, go find something longer. And then once I was able to memorize it and perform it in front of them, like after dinner, like we would all sit on the couch. They would all sit on the couch, including my siblings. And I would get up and I would, go through recite it. And then I would get paid because I was all about the money. That was my primary motivator because to me, money meant I could choose what I wanted to buy for myself. It wasn't that someone else chose for me where I said, oh, I want a dress and then it's bought for me and I don't have a say in what it looks like. No, I wanted the money so I could save my money and go out and buy the pair of shoes that I liked best and spend it myself. And that was a big deal. That autonomy was very important. And then when I got a little older and the poetry, I had to pick harder poems or longer poems. So I would get more money for it. But again, this was very useful. And I would like to recommend this to everyone. If you've never memorized poems, I would highly recommend it to writers because it's actually a very useful thing. And I know this because of my classes where I've taught children to memorize poems and what we've seen afterwards in their own writing. There is something about memorizing poems. So you're taking someone else who's already edited this poem that you obviously like already or don't pick it. And if anything, it's it helps you in developing your own writing voice to be better at communicating. So, and believe me, this would go on pretty much almost once a month. We would memorize a poem or a song or something. It was very useful for helping us learn to communicate with others.
And then we had to do a performance.
Oh, you do have to perform. And if anybody came over for dinner, we would definitely have to perform this.
And then this is where the real skill and training comes in, is then our parents would help us understand what emotions and what body motions, like physical actions to do with this reading to better express the poem or the speech or, whatever it was we had memorized. And so we better understood what other people would expect us if we say something like this, or we're supposed to be having this kind of emotion, then we're supposed to do this movement that helps indicate it.
So my mother loved Garrison Keillor, Wobegon stuff in the late 80s, early 90s. And the library had some of these. Anyway, there was one cassette, I don't remember which one, where he talks about it's this rather humorous story, and at the center of this story has to do with a recitation of the poem about Abraham Lincoln, "Oh, Captain, My Captain." And it is a rather funny story about essentially student misbehavior, if you will, which I was fascinated by in middle school. So one of the poems I picked to memorize was "Oh, Captain, My Captain." And then I memorized it. I recited it. It was approved. However, my mother had notes, if you will. And it was like, I remember like she kept telling me what to do and I didn't understand. So she literally got behind me, grabbed my, arms and said, now start reciting it and I shall do your arms for you so you can understand what I mean. Because a communication disorder goes both ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just how I communicate with the world. It's how the world communicates with me that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. And so I was like, oh, captain, my captain. And I don't quite remember the words anymore, but I remember the feel of her, like literally.
Our fearful trip is done.
Thank you.
What was it? The way we went, we said we'd be back. And this, but whatever it is.
I remember these were hand movements and arm movements I was really absolutely unfamiliar with. But now I use these arm movements all the time to make motions to help emphasize what I'm saying. And it is useful to both neurodivergent people as well as neurotypical people to offer emphasis and guidance about what I am saying. So that is how one of the things our parents did to help train us on how to interact with the outside world. And even, if you will, how to mask more effectively. However, Autism Speaks says things like, oh, you should just train them on how to do these specific things, not how to essentially give them a foothold into a greater thing, such as how to expressively communicate. They're simply saying, no, you just do this rote thing, and that is it, and it doesn't necessarily apply to anything else, and you certainly don't explain how it could apply elsewhere, because it's very much undervaluing an autistic person's ability to understand the why behind the what do you do. So that's where my issue with a lot of media representation about autistic characters comes in. Because again, it's a very shallow performance or a shallow explanation of this character's internal motivations. And that sometimes, quite appallingly, these autistic characters are implied to have very little internal motivation, as if they're a puppet or a toy you just turn on, like in Rain Man. You just turn him on and he performs, and then you turn him off and you take him backstage, and he requires nothing further. He doesn't have any internal issues that needs to be, processed through. He's fine. He's a puppet. He's a toy. And that is my issue with these shallow characters. Hello, sweetie. Of media representation. And so, yeah, that's the issue. Now let's talk about, or we can also talk about how to do it differently. And so that, because I don't want neurotypical people to feel like, oh, well, I can't talk about or present autistic characters because it's too complex for me. I promise you it is not. I promise you we're going to give you a foothold into how to do it. But again, you're still going to need a sensitivity reader because, everybody needs practice before they get good at it, period. I mean, that's just the way of the world anyway. So.
But let's say, because the gist of it to me was always been this view about autistic people don't have much emotion and then they have meltdowns. Like, it's just as an extreme view in the end, because the truth is it's that mostly it's inside. They're not, always sure how to express it to others. So they tend to just hold it inside. All humans are emotional creatures. This whole thing about, I don't really have any emotions. Okay, usually that is a temporary situation. That's another story for another time. But humans all feel emotion. They may be temporarily repressed, but they're all dealing with emotions. They're all processing it. But with autism, which is a communication disorder, it means that while they feel the emotion, they don't know how to express it to others, let alone process it internally always. And so if it keeps building up and they don't have downtime to process it, then it can all of a sudden come out because it's built up more than other people would have had it. But yeah. I mean, also as an autistic person growing up, I learned very early that most of the time it was not safe for me to express my emotions because other people wouldn't understand why I was feeling that emotion, and they would just distance themselves even more from me. So my best defense to get along with the rest of the world was to pretend I didn't have emotions. I still had them inside. I just learned how to not express them till I was in a safe place, like a bathroom. or back home. Or having a large pillow I can just shove my face into. But it's not that the emotions aren't there.
If anything, I've been told that when I have, expressed my true emotions in the sense of like the true volume, if you will, of the feeling I'm having in that moment with, regular people, they have felt it was too intense. It was too much. So, which gave me the impression that my emotional response is much stronger than theirs. Although, frankly, I actually wonder if it's more that they're less in touch with their emotional reactions to things rather than our emotional reactions are somehow at a higher volume or, more of it than theirs. But that's like, I don't know. That's something else entirely. Yes, I am very familiar with the Babysitters Club one. Let's say it's a bit problematic of a story, and even the writer has given several apologies in the past about the depiction of Susan, because it's a problematic depiction. It's not a terrible depiction, but it's not great. It is a depiction, and it wouldn't be such a big problem if it was not the only depiction.
Yeah. And again, that's also why representation matters, because the more variety you have, the less any one particular representation influences the majority of people's interpretation of that situation. The more variety you can bring in, the better.
Okay, Tom.
What?
What are we talking about? Like now I'm like, I feel like my soapbox, like maybe I'm totally wrong and I haven't adequately communicated, but it's like, okay, I'm there. I've said my piece. That is my internal issue with media representation.
So I just wanted to respond to a few of the comments in the comment area, because that's where the comments are located.
Are they though? No, I'm teasing. I'm just teasing.
I'll try to bring them up as I find them.
So a couple different people said something about, they are fine. They're not really autistic or something along those lines.
Yeah, the masking.
The masking. So our family's a bowler. Our family bowls all the time. Well, not now, but they do. In normal times, they bowl at our local bowling hall place. And one of my daughters, the one is autistic, would act certain ways, or like she was afraid to talk to people, or just a few different behaviors. And this friend of ours that we've been friends with like 5 years, because she works at the bowling alley, she's like, I don't want to offend you, but have you ever had her evaluated? I'm like, evaluated for like what? Like, that's a big umbrella term.
It's so huge.
She was like, well, the way that she acts reminds me of my brother, and my brother is autistic. I'm like, oh, okay. So then after that, I started like reading into it, and it was during that same time frame that I was trying to get her original doctor to freaking listen to me about how she was reacting to certain things. And newsflash, it wasn't because she was shy, like I was told. But then afterwards, I was just talking. I'm like, yeah, we got her evaluated. She's autistic, and they're like, people be like, but she acts fine. She can talk to people, and she can read. And I'm like, so I was used to people saying that about me, because people were like, you don't have multiple sclerosis, you're not old, you're not in a wheelchair, and you can take care of yourself. I'm like, so I was just surprised that people would still be like that with her, like, but she can talk to me, and she looks at me and like, but if you pay attention, she doesn't really look at you. Like, she looks in your general facial area, but she doesn't make direct eye contact with you unless she knows you really well, or you're her family or something like that. Like, have you noticed how we'll be in a noisy bowling alley and she will find some random corner and read her book for like 2 hours, the same book over and over again. Like, just like, and I'm like, I feel it's stupid and retarded. I have to like explain myself over and over again, like defend and explain. But yeah, No, I was just, seeing that in the comments about, and I don't have autism, but my daughter does. So I kind of get where you're coming from. But but she's normal.
But it's why for the longest time doctors said that children who expressed mild autism grew out of it with time, because we learned to mask better. We learned how to pretend with the rest of society, and so suddenly it's very different to diagnose adults with autism than it is children, because we've had so much more time and we learn how to do behaviors that do not set us apart, that do not, make us appear different. I mean, where is it?
Well, what Maggie was saying. I'm
going to stop touching it. I'll stop.
Dueling comments.
I'm trying to click the same one.
What Maggie said about training her to, where to express her emotions or feelings. That is part of masking. You learn that you cannot just act instinctively or behave in a way that comes naturally to you because the world is unsafe. And that is a dangerous thing for you to do, to be yourself. That to be yourself is, it paints you as a victim here, or it paints you as someone who must be controlled or must be brought under the conformity police, if you will, and that is called masking. When you do that, when you train your child, or that you yourself have been trained on how to behave in public, it is called masking. Whether you are autistic or not, that is still what is masking. When you learn how to behave in a way that is not you, and it is not like for a job such as acting, which is a little bit different, although it is kind of, if you think about it, a bit of a form of masking, because you're putting on the mask of another character. But anyway, that's something else. But that is masking, and it is effective, or hopefully it can be effective. It is useful, but it is also a little sad.
Okay,
it's a little sad that you are, as you actually are, you are not welcome, or you are not safe in this world.
You didn't care.
But it's required to survive and thrive, and that's just. I mean, what do you want? You want to be right? You want to be yourself, or do you want to be safe? Yes, I would say you do mask very well, Megan.
But I mean, that's also what our parents were showing us indirectly with this memorized. Now learn how to say it with emotions that are appropriate.
How to express appropriately, both physically in body language and in your face and in your voice, so you can practice using other people's words.
Okay, who's going first? I'm going
to
first.
Express yourself, and then later you can eventually bridge that or build a ladder to express yourself in a similar way with your own words. So it's very useful for writers in general. It's useful for neurotypical people, and it's very useful for neurodivergent people as well. I highly recommend it for everyone, including people on the autism spectrum disorder who are perhaps dealing with a more profound communication challenge. But believe me, there are simple poems. Shel Silverstein is great for these very short poems. Like, there is a poem for everybody on this planet. Trust me. Not just in English, but you know what I'm saying. Like, there's something for everyone. And
as well as who was the other one? Brooklyn, 1930s black poet.
Langston Hughes. Highly recommend. Langston Hughes has written some really beautiful, shorter poems that I used when I was a student teacher for a high school SPED class. Because some of the students, since they're teenagers, they're like, these are baby poems, I can't relate to this. And so I brought in some Langston Hughes because I adore Langston Hughes personally. And I really felt like Langston Hughes' experiences and his poems that he wrote about, I could really relate to, because let's be honest, it's a lot about oppression, isn't it? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, a lot of us have had to get pretty good at masking and learn a lot to bring in our family culture into the outside world. to be careful what kinds of music we share with people in the outside world, to be careful about all those ways we interact with the outside world.
Yeah. Although I will say, like Dr. Seuss and E.E. Cummings, while they are good for kind of getting a child to enjoy memorizing something, to get him into the habit, it does help more to find poems that are more naturalistic language, because Gloria and I very often crib phrases from poems and prayers we've memorized to express ourselves, because people respond very well to those. And so few people know them that they think they're our own words, so they don't even blink twice, like, oh, you must really mean that, because it was put so eloquently.
Yeah. Also, Ogden Nash is a good poet for that too, as well as Emily Dickinson, who tended to write in iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter is very close to the beat of our heart. You know, iambic pentameter is closely related to the average human heartbeat. Yeah. So the pace is very easy to adopt in order to speak it in a way that makes more sense when you're reciting it.
Okay. My turn. Collect one supply.
Something else also I was thinking about to help write characters and develop characters without them being tokens, as well as to avoid getting in some trouble, is people get very upset. You can kind of get a little bit of trouble if you base a character on one person. That can be very problematic if people start to recognize themselves, even though most of the time they won't. People really have no idea how others perceive them. But if you add qualities you've seen from 3 different people into one character, it can more often make them seem more rounded, but also help you bring in qualities about others, whether they have different personality traits or function differently, as well as what cultural backgrounds they have. That will also help remove the token issues in a character development, and just bring in rounded characters. Like I said, that's what we like so much about Doom Patrol. The fascinating part of each of these characters had nothing to do with their background. It didn't have to do with their, what race and back they came from, what money they came from. We care about who they were and just why they're so messed up, and how they're trying to cope in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So then we draw different colors. Since we have bullets, I feel like we use the bullets. No, we don't use the bullets. Does it say we use the bullets? Yep.
I love the name Billy. I'm using the name Millie for a character as well.
That's funny. You guys will have the same name for a character.
I love it.
Well, if 2, so we keep it. Another one. 2 ups and downs. Okay.
But I mean, that is kind of what song lyrics are. They are compressed emotional concepts, which is why they're so useful.
So in our family, one of the preferred ways our father interacted with, at least with me, I don't know about you, Tom, but Dad and I would sing lyrics to each other, particularly from music, both stage musicals and movie musicals. And it was a lovely shorthand way to express thoughts, but mostly feelings. Before gifts were a thing, I feel confident that if our father was still alive or had been, born later, so he was younger, because the man was born in 1940. So if he was a bunch younger, we would definitely be in that kind of text relationship where we send each other gifts all the time. I absolutely love sending reaction gifts to things, to people, as anyone in our Telegram humor group knows, because it's my thing. And and that's like, so music lyrics and also poems to a lesser degree, just because songs make it easier to memorize lyrics sometimes,
Mhm.
is like a shorthand way to communicate. Because sometimes, well, a lot of times it's very difficult, it's very challenging for me to communicate emotion in a way that makes sense to other people.
Yeah.
Hi, sweetie. So that, like, I think in order to accurately represent any character with any kind of, where you're trying, especially trying to represent neurodiversity, is to really get a better bead on internal motivations and internal perspective. And that way, how it comes out will seem more organic and genuine. So, for instance, my enjoyment, my lifetime enjoyment of deep diving information, like a certain kind of information, so it's not, like, oh yes, I did have a dinosaur phase. I mean, stereotypes are real. But like, I've had many deep dives over my lifetime so far. So for instance, upper elementary, I got into the Little House series, Laura Ingalls Wilder, which led me to a deep dive of Victorian medicine and Victorian lifestyles, especially in the Wild West and in, the unsettled, that's a bit colonial. But what I'm trying to say is, before the Midwest necessarily all became states, is what I'm trying to say. And so, for instance, at my local library in the children's section, there was an entire Time Life book series about Victorian lifestyle, and there was more than one book essentially about Victorian medicine and Victorian diseases. And I seriously hardcore deep dived on that. That's how I learned to make bread. Was my deep dive into Victorian lifestyle and what Laura Ingalls was talking about, and all of this was very fascinating to me. And also just being what is the word? Self-reliant. Being able to take care of myself. So being able to feed myself and being able to feed myself exactly the way I wanted, rather than what was available at the local grocery store. That was very appealing to me, because being an autistic girl, I definitely did not feel empowered by the world. I felt like the world was all the time trying to victimize me. And if anything, my parents, by their attempts to teach me how to math, were also inadvertently, and I don't know that they were necessarily entirely aware, that they were communicating to me that more than likely everyone in the outside world is going to try to infantilize me, victimize me, take advantage of me. Some of my mother's attempts to communicate this were rather legendary, like when I was at boarding school, and she sent a 6-page fax right before I took a trip to New York City. So I was on British Columbia. I was in British Columbia on one side on the West Coast. And then I was flying to New York City, where I was going to meet my parents at the airport, because they were flying in from Mississippi for Thanksgiving. And my mother sent a 6-page fax to the only fax number at the school, and it read in huge letters. The headline took up most of the first page. Do not go into any bathroom alone. The headmistress of the school called me in for a private meeting to give me this, and was trying to prepare me for my mother's off the wall, which I was not surprised at, and I was not alarmed by my mother's fax letter. But the headmistress was very disturbed by this. And needless to say, I was not necessarily welcomed back to the boarding school after the Christmas break. But anyway, it's just, sort of not being welcomed by the outside world was a trauma, a tragedy I had to deal with at a very young age. And it definitely colors how I interact with the world, how I perceive the world. Not that I think my parents shouldn't have been honest with me about it, because they were trying to keep me safe. But it's just that I had to grow up earlier than other children, neurotypical children necessarily do, about the world is kind of, if it's not out to get you, it's at least not welcoming to you. So you're going to need to learn to take on personas to survive and, be employable and everything, because the world is not going to welcome you being yourself.
Earlier in the chat, I saw that CB had asked, well, what age should you tell your child that they're different? I think is the word that CB used. In my experience, we had lots of doctor's appointments. We had, evaluation done. And Ileana at that time called it freakouts, because that's what she called it, and that's what I called it for the longest time. I never termed her as like freaking out. It's just what she used it as. And so then after the 2-day appointment, which the second day she didn't recognize the same doctor person because her hair was up and not down. She recognized her from her shoes. But after everything was said and done and I got the reports, she was like, does that have my test results? I go, yeah. Do you want me to go over with you or just give you like a summary? She was 8, but like she's a very advanced for 8-year-old thinking skills. Okay. And so we went over it, and then I said, do you have any questions? And I was prepared for like a whole mirage of like, what does that mean? Or does that mean I can't do this? Or like, what does that word mean? Her only question was, does this mean I get to have more doctor's appointments? Because at that time she had difficulties labeling how she was feeling at certain things. So she said she was sad all the time, except when she went to doctor's appointments. So, but that was her only question. And so, and it's been like 3 years, I think, 2.5 years, give or take, 2 years, give or take. And now she's to the point where she's okay if I use the A word.
Mm-hmm.
And she's okay if I use that word in reference to her when I'm talking to other people. So, like when I was first joining you on screen,
Mm-hmm.
and we would be talking about it, she would glare at me so bad when she would hear me say the word. But now she's okay with it, and she doesn't call it freakouts anymore. But I mean, I think I was only able to sit down and explain to her what was going on because she knew there was something different with her. She knew that it wasn't normal, so to speak, to like the day's not going as planned, so I'm going to drop to the ground like I have noodles for bones and cry for 3 hours. Like she knew that wasn't typical because she has a brother and sister, and neither one of them reacted that way. So, yeah, and like when we go into like groups and stuff, I'll like a few of the moms know, so like they're aware, like because they have kids on the spectrum or they have been around other families that have kids on the spectrum, so they're really aware. And then our Sunday school teacher used to be a regular teacher, and so she's totally with it. But I think generally, like you just kind of have to gauge where your child is at, what they're able to comprehend, and how much before it gets to be overwhelming, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put on my child psychology degree for a minute, little hat. Okay. It's adorable hat, I'm just going to say. So, and our sort of rule of thumb in child psychology world goes like this. If they're old enough to ask the question, they're old enough to know the answer. But we're talking about at the level of the question they asked.
Right. Don't give them more information than what they're asking
Right.
for.
You don't want to give, like, if it's a 1-sentence question and it's in simple wording, you don't want to give a big, complicated 1-page answer. You want to give a simple reply to match the simplicity or complexity of the question. So,
hey, it's not just with like autism related.
It's just with everything.
So my oldest daughter, I think I was like 7 months pregnant with her sister, and she said, when are we going to go to the farm? And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, what farm? She's like, so we can crack your belly open and have my sister around. And I said, that's how babies are born. So she said, well, how did this baby come out, Mom? Well, you're in a lot of pain. You squeeze out of your vagina. Any other questions? No, I'm good. So, like, over the course of years, she'd ask very, like, factual questions.
Yeah, you step them up with
like
their
a little
capacity.
a little bit at a time. So,
right.
you know,
Yeah, and so like I knew that I was different when I was 6, and I was taken away from my family, and I was living in a mental institution, and I was told my parents were never coming for me. And so these people explained to me that I was different then. Afterwards, like I'm not necessarily advocating any of this. I just want to point that out. This is not how I would do it. Afterwards, I felt very betrayed. During it, I felt very betrayed by my parents because I believed these other adults. And then when my parents were finally able to get custody back of me about 3 weeks later, I did not trust my parents. And honestly, that trust took literally years to rebuild. Honestly, decades, if I'm brutally honest. And but on my parents' side, they just made it clear we never say the A word again. And so for the entire rest of my childhood and adolescence, until I moved out, we just were literally not allowed to say that word. We could kind of reference it, but we weren't allowed to say it as if this was a bugbear word or something. And that was my parents' rules. And I do not know either. I don't advocate for that either. To be honest, because again, as I said, I read the Babysitter's Club book about Susan and I wanted to talk about it. So I was allowed to say savant, but I wasn't allowed to say autism or autistic. Which again, I don't agree with either because I don't think that words should be forbidden in all contexts. Like there are contexts where any word is appropriate, especially for a curious child. Yes, I agree. It was absolutely traumatic. There will be a book eventually coming from that because why not profit off of your own trauma?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, you get it, Steph.
So for
our trauma.
For those who don't know, my book series I'm writing is based off of my very crappy, messed up, shitty childhood. So let's just leave it at that. That's how I tell it to you guys. That is not how I tell it to everyone else.
But yeah, I think most children at the point that they realize that they're different, they're going to ask the question, am I different? Or why do I seem that I don't seem to be like the other kids? Is that true? I think that that's the appropriate time when they ask a question that's related to that to be like, well, you may be different, but I think most people are a little bit different from each other anyway. Of like if you take a compassionate approach to answering these questions, you don't necessarily need to worry about exactly the specifics of how you are answering it as long as you are taking a compassionate, loving approach to the answer. And there is nothing wrong with being different. And in fact, I think personally, just as Glory, I think different is a strength because I can't tell you how many times neurotypical people have told me when we're brainstorming a solution for a problem, they're like, oh my God, Glory, I never would have thought of that, but that's absolutely perfect. You're like a superhero with your ideas. And I mean, like, yeah, it makes me feel good. But also I think it has to do with my neurodivergence that helps me think so radically different from other people because I approach it differently. And I'm really happy to contribute my difference of thinking and perspective to the group problem to find, good dynamic solutions. I think that's awesome that I can contribute that. It makes me feel really great. And like, there's a place for me in this world. And so again, like pointing out how difference can be a really great quality to be able to bring to any group or team that you want to be a part of is a very positive thing to bring up. Some people have a more ableist view. And honestly, let's be honest, some adults are going to have a more ableist answer about how it's so bad to be different. And again, that's why I'm saying, try to just, if you need to take a little time to think about it before you answer the question, because you can always ask, can I come back after dinner and give you an answer? Yeah, no problem, Mom, or no problem, sis or auntie, whatever, teacher. And, come at it from a compassionate point of view. And maybe that can help temper any internalized ableism any individual may be harboring and not necessarily aware of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
stories about 80s.
So Ileana, she we got her assessed and she went to therapy, like different therapists. Like one was for like speech and language, but not how to talk, but how to communicate. Okay. And then we went to an occupational therapist, and she's now able to brush her teeth without acting like it's the end of the world. And she's able to brush her hair without crying because it hurts. The brush on her hair just hurts. It doesn't matter what kind. We tried all different kinds with all different like conditioners in the hair. It doesn't work. Like, it's fine. Like, we just moved. We just stepped into it. And then when we came back from our trip, when we RV'd through the Southwest, we came back and we went back to a different speech therapist. And this speech therapist, her voice was loud. Like, you could hear her out in the lobby loud. And she's like, oh, sometimes I'm loud because I'm from an Italian family and we all talk really loud at the dinner table. And sometimes I don't understand how loud I am because she had a traumatic brain injury not long ago. So we gave her like three sessions. I'm like, we can't do this, because at the end of the third session, after like she came, I'm like, okay, we'll see you next week. My daughter broke down in tears because the whole time, and I heard her from the room saying like, you need to advocate for yourself because your mom and dad are not always going to be around. She's 10, by the way. Okay, my daughter's 10. She's not always going to be around to like help you. You need to advocate for yourself because you have a disease, and there's something like, she kept on saying that word over like 20 times, and like, it's such a disease. So afterwards, Elena was crying, and I was like, what is wrong? She's like, well, you tell me there's something wrong with me, and then that girl was telling me like 20 times that I have a disease and there's something wrong with me. So I had to have a conversation with her. I'm like, yes, like, it is labeled if there's something wrong with you because you're different, but do you think there's anything wrong with you? She's like, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with me. I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You have like, yes, you have autism. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong. You know a lot more about cats than anybody could possibly know on the planet Earth, but you do because you've dived into the books and all the learning, and you want to be a veterinarian, and I think that's really good. And so she's like, do I have to go back? And so now we have a different therapist, which is much better. But we've taken a break from speech therapy because like, we're not around people for her to like practice her skills that she's learning. Yeah. And they're just like skills like how to start a conversation and like how to go back and forth and not always have like one word answers. That's that sort of thing. Not like, not other weird stuff. But that's basically, I'm like, well, we're not going to do it because there's no point in us having Zoom meetings if there's not going to be any time to practice it with people outside your household that you're around all day, every day, forever.
Yeah, our parents definitely coached us a lot about, Tom, do you remember the conversation starting coaching from childhood?
Oh, yeah. And don't forget, both of your siblings had speech therapy as well.
Oh, yeah. I see Jules.
Much conversational
she was a horrible speech therapist, definitely.
And there are definitely good speech therapists, and there were some really awful ones.
Yeah.
I mean, my speech therapist essentially just taught me how to do silent stuttering. That was most of what she taught me in middle school. In elementary school was just how to do a silent stutter instead of stuttering out loud.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just see, I sometimes appear to have a different kind of dumbness.
And again, neurotypicals absolutely hate the silence of silent stuttering. Like, they will get straight up aggressive. And I've had to deal quite often in our younger years. And I mean, when I say younger, I mean our 20s, with neurotypical people getting quite aggressive about Tom's space, where he is essentially silently stuttering until like he's ready to actually say the words or the sentence or the phrase. And they get so mad. And so running interference for him on that. Not that I don't have a lesser degree of silent stuttering, because while stammering or stuttering is more commonly presented in males, females do have it at almost the same rate. However, it presents differently because, of course it does. So, yeah. Where are we? Is it about time to wrap up, or do we have more to say?
We're probably close to wrapping up, although we're also seeing like just how much everyone in this chat can relate.
Hello and welcome to Catharsis.
All right. Although real quick, I think you can probably answer this a little bit.
Okay, there is in that Venn diagram, the sliver is far larger than normal. I think it's like I want to say more than a third crossover. So you're going to see pretty much most neurological differences you're going to see show up with a comorbidity of autism.
Yeah. Pretty much once you say autism, it means, well, what are all the other complications that are also going to show up?
Yeah.
Because it's not just one.
Yeah,
Your brain. Yeah, sorry,
there's
go on.
there's always more than just one thing. Like, for the majority of people that I know that have autism, it's usually more than just that diagnosis.
So here's the thing with autism. It's a spectrum disorder, and what that really means is, we're still in the infancy of diagnosis. Yeah. So right now, it's a catch-all. It's a junk drawer diagnosis. It means that there's a lot of similar symptoms, but the cause for them can be dramatically different from each one. So you can essentially, there's a bunch of different ways to get to an autistic diagnosis, and they don't necessarily have any relation, the causations. And that is a frustrating factor. Yes. Jules is also a teacher, so I know she gets it.
Which two?
But again, that's why we want people to be able to hear us communicate with each other, so they can see there's so many different little things depending on the situation. I mean, you also heard, as I'm trying to reference Langston Hughes to Glory, Glory and I played our own version of Password.
Yes.
And this is what we do all the time at home.
And we've been talking about, we'd like to really exhibit this more often on the show to help people see how we communicate. Two different people with a communication disorder. Now they get through.
And so one of them is, we both very much tag people with brain not
tag
single
them.
Word.
Like, give me a bigger hint. Come on.
In the card catalog, you find something by subject matter, the single word references.
Tags. Yeah, we use tags or descriptors, hashtags even, but like, how would you describe Maya Angelou? African-American, woman, poet.
Presidential poet.
Was she a Nobel laureate? I can't remember right now. But, you would tag her under a whole bunch of different, also like where she lived, all the locations that she lived and wrote about, that sort of thing. So we'll communicate that way. Like, what was it yesterday where you were trying to describe somebody?
Yeah.
And you were, was it when we were talking about Rutger Hauer?
Yes, yes.
You were talking about Verhoeven, like the RoboCop director, and I'm like, who's Verhoeven?
So, like, when I talk to my husband and like I'm referencing somebody, and I talk to him about a lot of different people, he remembers who it is more so by how I described them. So there's this girl at church, her name's Jessica, and we got to lunch sometimes, and sometimes teaches the kids, and like he knows who she is, but he knows who she is not by her name Jessica, which he should remember because his own name is Jesse, but that's besides the point. He remembers her by that the tattoo lady, because she used to be in the Marines, I want to say. I might have the wrong brand, but she has tattoos on her arms, so that's how she's remembered. Like, he remembers her as the tattoo lady. And then, like, I have a friend that I've been friends with like 11 years, maybe 12. I've never actually met her in person because she used to be my pen pal. Now we just talk all the time on Facebook. But he remembers her as California Coffee Chick because she sent us coffee from a local coffee grower there up here. So, like, to me, that's not anything normal, or not anything not normal, be to like reference someone. Like, we know in our lives, we know 5 different Ashleys. One of them used to be my husband's roommate right when I moved in, and now and forever, she'll be referred to as Crazy Ashley. I have another Ashley I talk to, and it's not Crazy Ashley, and that's how the kids know who I'm talking about too. Crazy Ashley or not Crazy Ashley, but it's just
no, for Glory and me, it's all the variations, because we are in the Bible Belt, of Christ.
Christian,
oh my God.
Christina, Christina with a K, Christina with a C, Kirsten, Christiane. I mean, like, it goes on. Frickin' Christy. Oh my God, there's so many. All the Christians, methinks thou dost protest too much, my lady. And there's so many, and it's like, it's difficult even to converse, to differentiate. Like, because literally Tom had a coworker that he's very close to, and our next door neighbor. One side of our neighbors, her name is Christy. The other neighbor is Kirsten. And it's like, please, Lord. So we have to find other ways to describe him sometimes, because it's like, because also, like, Tom's coworker's name was Christy. So it's like, which Christy? Do you know how many Christys we have? You know, versus Kirsten's, and they're spelled differently because apparently people's mothers couldn't agree, and so on.
Yeah, versus like, Kristen.
Well,
sometimes with a K, sometimes with a C. Just, oh God.
So I grew up and went to elementary school, a good chunk of elementary school on the Oregon coast near like Tillamook Cheese Factory, Oregon coast over there for reference to people who are not familiar with the area. There was a total of 9 Stephanies between the grades below.
I'm very familiar with geography there.
Oh, well, I'm not just you, but anyone else in the chat. Okay, just saying it for everybody. So I started in 3rd grade on the Oregon coast. I was between 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade. There's 9 different Stephanies. 9.
Wow.
And only one was spelled with like an A and Y at the end, but everybody else was spelled exactly how you see my name spelled on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I graduated high school in Portland, my best friend who I worked and lived with for a short time, her name was Stephanie as well. And our last names rhymed. Our last name, what my original last name was, rhymed with her last name. So it was a little weird. Because like we paged over the phone at Fred Meyer where we worked, and it would sound the same even if they used our first and last name.
Yeah, I think like going through school, there was never more than 2 Stephanies in my grade, thank goodness. But yeah, like there are names that like, oh, there were so many Jennifers and Heathers growing up down here that it was like, good Lord. Yeah, I bet there's a lot of Marys.
Like my grandma's name is Mary, and her twin sister's name is Margie or Margaret. Probably Margaret. We always called her Margie. And then like their middle names are almost the same, like Elaine and Ellen. But my middle name is a variation of my grandma's middle name. So, which everyone has a middle name Marie somewhere in their life. So.
How are the monsters, Stephanie?
Stephanie? Wait, what?
The growling?
Yeah.
I was like, how
no,
are
I thought
the
you said Tiffany.
Oh, no, I said Stephanie, or I tried to say
Okay, my brain just glitched.
But anyway, yeah, like when Tom and I are talking about actors or people we know, it's like, which one? Give me a hint, describe, and, you know, the words don't necessarily come easily for us in the moment. So we start, you know, using tertiary descriptors or tags or subcategories.
So words fail to come to me correctly a lot of times of my MS that I have. So other than like me mixing stuff up completely backwards, I'll say like I can't think of the word, but it has to do with this, this, and that, and somewhere around me someone will pop up with it.
That's a lot.
I think they wanted you to save on the personalized items.
Right. Like, you know what? You know, versus being able to like personalize everyone's towels so there's no more arguing. It's like, no, you have to share. 4 towels for 5 girls. Let's watch this in action. I'm teasing.
Yes, that was my children in the background growling, not my cat, just so everyone knows.
How's the cat doing?
She's hiding somewhere, sleeping, because that's what she does.
Cat.
She sleeps, and then she eats all night long and runs all over the freaking house. It's fine. She'll literally climb up our walls. Like we have, we live in an RV, and so like we have those fabric balances over the
window,
like these over the window. She'll climb up and like claw at it. I'm like, that cat is going to be more destructive than our 8-year-old boy. It's fine.
Yeah. My cognitive functioning is, it's easier for me to say it than write it. So writing can be a real challenge. I definitely need plenty of dopamine and serotonin to get it going.
Yeah, which is why I'm currently working on finding if Dragon Naturally Speaking is the best option, or if there's another one, because Glory doesn't have as difficult a time telling a story to me, but she has a much harder time if it's to write it out.
And that may have something to do with my dyslexia as well, because that definitely does play into it. Because I am the Hot Mess Express. Good times. I said, I don't think it's a bad thing to say. There ain't nothing wrong with being a hot mess. Look at me now.
There's this craft store near us that I found this coffee cup, or this water, a water thing like this, and it said Hot Mess Express all over it. And I gave it to my tattoo lady friend for Christmas one year. She really enjoyed it.
Yeah. It means I'm living.
Right?
I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm not expecting to be a perfect person. I had to come to that grips on that as a child, so I never really had much in the way of expectations of being functional. I'm just trying my best, and happy that I get anything accomplished, quite frankly.
Ellie, can I tell you what typhoid is?
I still find the typing on transcribing to be a bit of a challenge. Eva? There, I was like, why is it not?
Yeah, Glory did not inherit that part from her mom. That was our mother's job for, I swear, most of her working life.
Decades? Yeah. And if mom were still alive today, I could do that, and she would be great at it, because mom typed, 120 words a minute on average on her bad days?
Yeah, on a bad day. She could still type over 100 words on a mechanical typewriter. I still don't understand how.
Fingers of steel.
Do you mean the kind that you'd have to move the thing over yourself?
Yeah.
Whatever the thing is, I can't think of the word.
The carriage.
No.
The carriage return.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she could type 100 words on a purely mechanical one, which requires a high degree of coordination because you don't want the two font hammers to hit each other at the same time. So you have to literally give it just enough time to pull away.
Happens so much when I try to use the typewriter. I do have 2 typewriters because I'm that kind of person.
So, Charlie, I have a question for you. You said that, your comment says Dragon can be nice, Apple, right there on the screen. Have you used all 3 of them? Which one do you like better out of those 3?
I would say, is it actually called Google Dictate?
Yeah, I did not know that. I thought I knew all the Google apps, but go on, sweetheart, and tell me everything.
No, I was just wondering, which one works better for, dictating.
Yeah, I would love to hear about
it. Talking to it and then it typing whatever you're saying accurately.
I don't really have an issue, for instance, with the punctuation problem, because during the editing process, I can literally read what it says out loud, what's in print, and then put in my punctuation, because upon review, I know where the punctuation should go. So that's, for me, I don't know about everyone else, but for me, that's not as big of a problem. Or as big of a challenge, if that makes any sense. Just because I kind of know where I am, even upon repeat of what I've said. So how are we all doing? I want to point out what we have planned for next week is autism and romantic relationships. Well, and when I say romantic relationships, I mean romantic and sexual relationships. We just like the repeating R. I'm just going to be honest. We thought it was cool. So, because, Valentine's is coming up and we thought that, hey, topical, it's cool.
And we've done a lot more psychology research than most on, all right, how do you deal with neurotypicals?
Who's this? It's a wild child.
Did you come on screen just to answer my question?
What button did I press?
Yes, because it's a lot of typing. I have used.
Welcome to the club.
She's loving it. Okay, go on.
I have used all three. I have been using Dragon Naturally Speaking since I think version 1. The thing that I don't like with it is it lies about its compatibility with programs. And so even if it specifically says it works with the word processor that you're used to using and that you want to use, that may not be true.
Okay.
It may work with it. Meaning it will pop up, it will allow you to start saying things, but its biggest error is it will start randomly putting words in different places. Like it loses cursor control in some software, and the cursor will randomly move around, and that is bad. If it works well with the software that you're wanting to use, then invest in it, but definitely look up and make sure that it works with what you're wanting to use it for.
Okay.
And it doesn't just go crazy, because when I contacted them, they said, well, we said it had nominal support for your apps. It is technically working.
That is a big technical.
Yes, words that were coming out of my mouth.
Technical foul.
Words that were coming out of my mouth were technically appearing on screen, just not in the order that they came out of my mouth in. So,
well, that's a hot mess right there. Yeah. Okay.
I use because I have a MacBook, I use Apple Dictate a lot. I actually use it to write most of the work that I do. I really, really like it. It's actually in the accessibility features. It's meant for people that have a difficulty seeing, and as such, it works fairly well. It will learn your manner of word choice over time. So you need to do the one thing that I'm very bad at, because I also silent stutter. And so anytime you have a break in what you're saying, it will presume from context what the words are, and sometimes it defaults towards what you would write in a message or an email over what you would write in a story. And I found that also to be true with the Google Dictate, which is built into Google Docs. So if you're in Google Docs, there is a speech to text option that is built into it, and that's the easiest way to access that. I've also used the software Just Press Play, which is great because you just record an audio file. It's an app you have on your phone. You just talk to it. You record your audio file. When it comes time to take it off, you have both the MP3 of the audio file, and it will create a transcription of what it heard, just automatically. It does not do it as you type. It's just in the background. After it's done, it will transcribe it for you. So there's that. If you want word for word transcription and you want it to get infinitely better, it is not the cheapest option, but that is Sonics. It is a service that you use. You actually, I think, I think their payment works kind of like SoundCloud does, where you pay for how many hours of audio it has to transcribe. It's literally a transcription service. So you would record the audio, you would upload it, but anytime there is an error, you can literally tap the word, you can hear back exactly what word it is or what phrase it is, and correct it. When you correct it, it goes, oh, my bad, and will start learning much faster than any of the other algorithms that I've seen for this. It is probably other than Dragon, which can be nightmare expensive depending on what method you get into it, but it's up there with Dragon in price. But if you can get away with using either the Apple Dictate or the Google Dictate, there is one built into Microsoft just built into Windows. It's also under accessibility. I have not been able to get it to work well for me, but Windows and I fight badly. So that could just be a user error on my part, because I think they need to hire people that know what coding looks like post 1972 to actually write their code and do their UI. So
That's true. Yeah.
But hopefully that answers the question. I do believe that is true.
So good to know, though.
Yeah, that's really
Right.
useful. Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, because I'm a big advocate of dictating, and that's true whether you have issues typing or not. It is the best way to get your word counts out. That's what took me from writing about 300 to 400 words a minute to roughly, a minute, an hour to about 1,000 words an hour. Is just being able to words onto a page.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful, because I can talk a lot faster than I can type. Like, my thoughts are faster than my typing. And when I handwrite stuff, let's just not go there. But my handwriting is all over the place because I'm usually like thinking 5 steps ahead of where I'm actually writing.
And the biggest trick with all of these is remember to try your best while you're using them to dictate as if you would to a secretary. Remember to say your commas, your periods, and things like that. Because
essentially visualize what you're saying as text.
Kind of like when you're doing let's say you're doing text to speech in a text message. And you want to put a period, you'd say, I went to the store, period. Could you remember? I don't know. I'm just making it up, but
yeah.
It is a lot less of editing. This is actually the brilliance of Sonics, which, like I said, it's not cheap. So that's why I don't really recommend it. But it will actually use your speech pattern to infer commas and periods and include them. Its goal is to make a finished transcript when you're done, and it actually does a fairly good job of it if you speak naturally. But
there is actually one other tool that you just reminded me of, which is YouTube. Anything that you live stream, whether you actually make it public or not.
Yeah, like if you record it,
YouTube will automatically make a transcript, and it's easy to just pull a non what do you call it that goes across the screen?
Closed captioning?
Yeah, a non-subtitled closed caption format. You can just get the text format.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
And most time, it's actually pretty good. I will give it that. Like, they've put in a lot of effort, because that's now how YouTube figures out if your video is relevant to people's searches. They don't care as much about the tags, because they look for what words do you use in your video.
So I will say, for anybody who has an eye towards monetizing your channel, the keywords that you actually put in your channel keywords are the ones advertisers search.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So those are very important.
So next week, romantic and sexual relationships. Whether you're celebrating Valentine's or not. Because it turns out, yes, autistic people do. So this whole stereotype about, autistic people, particularly the males, never have romantic and sexual relationships. And I'm like, are you kidding? Do you know? These horn dogs. No. I'm teasing. But I mean, look, it was a revelation for me just a few years ago. And I realized, hold up, how many partners have I had, the females? Because I'd always been told girls don't count, women don't count. And I'm like, hold up, if I count them, oh, good Lord. Yeah, anyway, look, it's just because, I went by what I was told. And people kept trying to shove me back in the closet. And so, yes, Tom, with his smart himbo, We do love you. And so we wanted to talk about that because apparently autistic people, and I didn't really realize this until recently, autistic people approach romantic and sexual relationships differently and maintain them in a different way than neurotypicals for a variety of reasons. But this whole thing about, oh, these people will never get married or be in long-term relationships. They will never have children. They will never have this aspect of life, or they're just celibate, not celibate. They're non-sexual. They're asexual, but not like in a chosen way, but a whether they want to be or not. They just, it doesn't function. And it's like, no, that's not a thing.
I love kissing.
Also, for some reason, I find it really easy to flirt with people, even when I didn't mean to flirt.
Oh like, God, do you still have a problem?
Flirting is a full contact sport.
I mean,
we have rules and scorecards. We have competitions at conventions.
Yeah, like there's some things I didn't realize were flirting for decades.
But also, this part
my father used to keep a baseball bat in the trunk of the car, trying to literally threaten people to leave me alone, like at the mall. And anyway.
But also that part where there's this weird assumption that any flirting automatically means sexual interest versus you're just trying. You want to gain friends. You're enjoying it.
You know, like you're just having fun. You're playing. Playing does not necessarily mean sexual or romantic. At least to autistic people. And apparently, it was a real revelation for me to find out about pansexual because, like, I love flirting. I have a great time, in fact. It's fun. It's, good times. But I find it very difficult to be sexual with somebody that I do not have a meaningful relationship with. Which, let me tell you, has gotten awkward when I've been invited to parties and then found out when I got to the party that this was an orgy. Of like, ew, no thank you, hard pass. So let me tell you, people have been upset with me like it's my fault that they didn't tell me ahead of time that this was a group sex party.
Right.
Why was this not on the invitation?
Yeah.
Bring lube. And if you don't want to say it directly, just say that line. We all know what it means.
Everybody knows what that means, or else they think, oh, are we fixing cars? The bottom line is they'll ask.
Sorry.
Look, a lot of people ask me, why don't I have a stand-up career? Because this is how I approach life and what I respond to people. So anyway, that's what we're going to talk about next week. We're all going to have a great time. It's going to be a fun episode. However, I absolutely understand if you're not interested in talking about romantic or sexual relationships, or really it's more like about how the approach can be different. That's really what we're thinking about focusing on, is that it appears, and I have learned the hard way, neurotypical approach is very different. So anyhow, yeah. But like I've literally had to Google like how many people are required for it to be an orgy versus a group sex party. Like this is like something that's come up. So
we're in Mississippi. There's actual laws that tell you what the difference numbers are.
It's true.
And some of it actually has to do with who's wearing shoes.
For real. I've accidentally wandered into... Anyway, we'll save that for next episode.
I feel like a whole bunch of stuff that is going to be all brand new to me because I don't live anywhere near y'all.
Oh, I grew up around Washington, D.C., and let me tell you, I got stories.
It's going to be fun. It's supposed to be a fun episode, a lighthearted, fun episode of just because, like autistic people are still, full-fledged people, but the approach is different. And I was like, let's talk about it. It's going to be fun. I've had some romantic relationships I didn't even realize were romantic. I thought we were just close friends. It turns out
Oh God, you had a lot of those.
Oh, good Lord. Like, and then they break up with me and I don't understand what's happening. I'm like, could you please explain? They're like, if you don't know, like, I swear I am not trying to do like a game with you. I'm not trying to mess with your mind. I am genuinely clueless.
Worst breakup I ever had was a Marine that I didn't know I was dating.
Yes, exactly. Like, all the stories y'all are going to enjoy. These stories are going to be fun. We're going to have a great time. Hopefully there will be lots of laughs. Or at least I'm going to tell a lot of funny stories. And, hopefully you'll all be laughing.
And maybe we can all learn a few things on how better to, talk with people. Yeah.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with laughing and smiling and touching someone on their shoulder. It doesn't mean you want to get in their pants.
Well, there's actually been some studies about shoulder touching, and it turns out
there is actually some stuff with neurotypicals on this one.
Yes. I'm like, I'll try to dig up my psychology books that have literally gone over this, and I'm like, oh, this degree is paying off already. There are, illustrations about this. I'll see if I can find some maybe on the internet so we could share it on screen. So everyone, if you don't know, can be educated about the zones. Because I have learned this the hard way too. Of like, do not touch that area of a person that you think you're just being friendly with. They're going to interpret it different.
Yeah. You can touch someone's hand and forearm, no problem. But if their hand is resting on their knee, you are now too close to other zones, so touching their hand will take on a different meaning.
Versus I interpret people touching my hand as a very romantic thing. So anyway, yes, we're going to go over it. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a great time. What were you going to say, Charlie?
Oh, I was just saying, it's like when you learn The Great Secret of Life that Love is a Battlefield by Pat Benatar. It's actually like a learning course. Like, no, yes, like there's lots of conflict. There's entire battle stratagems in there. Like, yes, she meant that literally.
Yes, it's a very educational song. I highly recommend. So, would anybody like to do an outro? No outro. Stephanie, you got a book coming out? Has it already come out? I'm so sorry that I do not remember this off the top of my head.
It's coming out. Hold on. I got my dip in my mouth.
Oh, so sorry. So, Tom.
Well, I'm simply known as Tom, or Glory's brother Tom. I am not, however, a religious brother Tom, so that's not part of my name. Some people do get this confused. I mostly just hang out on this show and help Glory, run a fun little entertaining piece. I will someday maybe start putting stuff out on my own. Who knows what the future holds? It's 2021. It's going to get weird.
Yeah. Okay. So I am in the midst of like leaning in hard on the branding that I'm doing. So anybody who goes to my channel will notice it's now the non-binary writer with Charlie. So things are changing, y'all.
And both Charlie and Steffi and Tom's links are all down below already in the description.
Oh, darn it. We completely forgot the other part about Doom Patrol we liked.
What did we forget? Real quick.
Danny, the non-binary street.
Oh, isn't Danny amazing?
I love Danny.
Yes.
Such
a great character.
I thought the conversation Danny had in the second season with Dorothy was very honest and heartfelt, and I really loved that. That Danny realized as well that they had been, used in a way by the chief as well to take advantage of Dorothy's trust. And I don't think that's actually a spoiler. But like, I thought that was a very heartfelt conversation to have with a brick.
Wait, what? You're almost done? You're actually almost done?
Danny is my heart.
Stephanie?
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes, Glory is correct. I do have a new book coming out soon. It actually comes out in 14 days. Actually, it comes out on the 15th of February because it's a Monday and my last book came out on Monday. So I picked a Monday for it to come out again. It's available for pre-order on Amazon and as an ebook. And it's just a continuation of my first book. And I guess today I should start writing on my third book, which is outlined. I just, after writing and revising and writing and revising, I went to sit down to write and my brain said, no, I'm going to go on vacation. So you should too. We'll pick it up next month. Like pretty much. But But yeah, I'm excited. It's a bit longer than the first book, and I feel like there's more details in the second book. The first book, the main character is like between 9 to like 16 years old. So in the second book, she's like 16 on up. So I feel like some of the situations are more appropriate, like more teenage, young adult stuff appropriate. And it was just more fun to write her when she's older as opposed to like a 9-10-year-old. Yes. So yeah, thank you. Yes, that's right. So Miss Cat right here, she, got me watching her Stardew Valley. So I bought Stardew Valley only because I had a Steam gift card on my account for like the last 5 years that I forgot about. I'm like, look at that. It's on sale. Might as well do that. So I've been playing Stardew Valley.
That's awesome.
Instead of writing. So
Hey, I consider my time in No Man's Sky part of my creative process because I get to run around in a spaceship in a sandbox world where I can do whatever I want and kind of play with general ideas of being in space to kind of generate and refresh myself for writing space opera. So sometimes, like, these games are very helpful in valid parts of our creative process.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been watching a bunch of tech noir movies like Blade Runner and 13th Floor to get me in the mood for writing the short story I'm currently working on, which does bring up, did you know I have a story out? Mabel Woke Up Dead This Morning. It's a cute little dark comedy. It's free on my channel right now. I'm just throwing that out there. Like, I just want people to enjoy her.
So speaking of your
Mabel?
short story,
Mabel.
Speaking of your short story, I'm in the process of writing this short story that it's due for this submission for this online magazine, but you also have like a physical copy of it. But they give you a first line. You have to make up a short story based on using that first line in it. And the first line in the story that I'm going to be writing is, "What should we do with the body?" And now mine is like a very what can go wrong trying to dispose of a body accurately? Like, what can go wrong? Like,
I think so too.
Yes,
sounds like the beginning of a romance story to me.
That's a very
That's actually been one of Glory's romance stories she started with. Though she hasn't gone that too much further. But yeah, she does actually have one that she started with that. Yeah.
Which one are we referring to?
It was actually just a few weeks ago we were talking about, what do we do with the body? Well, you need a friend to dispose of a body.
Oh, that one.
And how do you entrap someone? It's like, this is a perfect rom-com situation.
I mean, it's a date, right?
And for anybody who would like to hear a wonderful song from the point of view of a disappointed corpse who gets dug up every night so somebody can have their fun, check out Dearly Departed by Kathy Marr. It is probably one of my favorite songs, and it is hilarious.
I will definitely have to look that up because it's not ringing a bell for me. And I love, it sounds a little bit like a murder ballad, and I do love murder ballads so much.
Kind of. She's just very upset that she knew that she would be loved someday. She just didn't know she had to wait till after she died. And then for this, so
relatable. Oh, Charlie, don't you have the podcast thing? Is that tomorrow? Or?
I am taking a break from the podcast this week to do some rescheduling of things. I do believe it's going to be coming back next Tuesday.
Okay, so not this Tuesday, but like
not this Tuesday, next Tuesday. And the topic will be classic horror monsters and identity.
Ooh. Yes.
Oh, there's so much to talk about there.
There's so much to unpack. Good times.
And just going over Universal Studios.
Mm-hmm.
I love
pretty much what we'll be doing.
My favorite one, real quick, was I think it's called Cobalt Blue 51 or something like that. It involves at a certain point the actor wearing a huge life-size alligator head, and I am here for this nonsense. And it is in black and white. It's fantastic. Mad scientist, you name it all. It's got it all. Oh, and it takes place in Louisiana. Good times. I absolutely love B monster movies, So anyhow, thank you all for coming. both in chat and if you're watching on the replay, congratulations, you've made it this far. You're a real champ. I mean, let me know how we can like show our appreciation. Thank you so much for coming. We will be here next week and we will talk about autism and romantic relationships. But until then, thank you and bye-bye.